Chapter 2886. Book 1. Chapter 330. The Moon Immortals were quite shocked that Zhao Fu had succeeded. Yu Yao said softly, "This is the 11th type of moon power, and he's only missing one before he absorbs all of the moon power." Yu Wuxing said with a complicated expression, "We're about to take the final step. I feel quite excited but also a bit worried, but I don't know why." Yu Qianqian said seriously, "No matter what, our December will definitely go through great changes." Yu Xuening nodded. Fusing the power of the December is incredibly important. It can change the fate of all of December. The Moon Saintess sighed, "It's a pity that he's a man. It would be great if he was a woman." Yu Shumin said softly, "If he was a woman, she would be able to obtain the legacy of the December and become the next Moon Immortal. She might even become a Moon Immortal who is not any weaker than an innate Moon Immortal. However, because he's a man, this is not possible." Yu Xianzi said seriously, "There's still one final type of moon power. We'll talk about it after he fuses with all of the moon power." Massive amounts of moon power gathered within Zhao Fu's body, once again forming a spherical star that gave off intense starlight and floated around the other stars. Boom! A massive explosion once again sounded out as an extremely terrifying wave of moon power exploded out, causing the surrounding space to twist. Zhao Fu's body became hazy. This wave of moon power was more than 10 times stronger than the previous one, and the Moon Immortals no longer felt any pressure. Instead, they felt terror. They instinctively feared this moon power. It was more than 10 times stronger than the moon power they had. Finally, they arrived at the first moon. The Moon Immortals stood on the stage, and Zhao Fu did not advance rashly. Before Zhao Fu went up, the Moon Stone gave off a terrifying might. If Zhao Fu dared to take another step forward, the Moon Stone would definitely give off a terrifying repulsive force. Boom! Zhao Fu's body once again gave off blood-red starlight, and a blood-red star gave off a cross-shaped blood-red light that appeared above the 11 white stars, causing a massive wave of Emperor Star power to descend. Bang! 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 Massive sounds rang out as the 11 white stars gave off boundless light and exploded out with massive power, blocking the blood-red star's Emperor Star's power. Zhao Fu snorted out coldly as his body shone with a golden glow. A single golden star that brought with it the might of the Motherf King Human King appeared within Zhao Fu's body. Boom! An explosion sounded out as a massive wave of Emperor's power weighed down on the 11 stars. The 11 stars gave off an even more powerful aura, once again blocking that Emperor's power. Above, there was a golden star and a blood-red star that gave off intense blood-red and golden lights. The 2 Emperor Stars' power pressed down on the ground below, while the 11 stars below gave off boundless silver light and 11 powerful waves of power, resisting the 2 Emperor Stars' power above. The 2 enormous forces in Zhao Fu's body were in a deadlock. Zhao Fu's expression was cold. If 2 Emperor Stars were not enough, then he would use 3. Boom! An explosion sounded out as Zhao Fu's body gave off a violet light, and a wave of devil chi rose up from Zhao Fu's body. A violet star giving off a massive amount of devil chi appeared within Zhao Fu's body, and a massive wave of devil star power landed on the 11 stars. Facing the pressure of 3 supreme Emperor stars, the 11 white stars were unable to withstand it. The starlight they gave off gradually weakened, and the stars slightly trembled. Boom! Another explosion sounded out as Zhao Fu's body gave off boundless demonic light, and a terrifying wave of demonic chi spread out from Zhao Fu's body. A black star giving off a heaven-toppling demonic might appeared within Zhao Fu's body, and the terrifying demon star power descended. The 11 stars were unable to resist, and the starlight they gave off dimmed. It was as if they were bound by the power of the 4 supreme Emperor stars, unable to move at all. Sensing the ripples coming from Zhao Fu's body, the Moon Immortals' expressions became serious. They could sense that apart from moon energy, Zhao Fu also had other terrifying powers. However, because Zhao Fu's aura was developing chaotically, They were unable to determine what kind of power it was. This was enough for the Moon Immortals to take seriously. Zhao Fu's identity was not as simple as it seemed. Zhao Fu suppressed the 11 stars within his body and looked ahead as he walked forwards. Boom! The moon stone in the sky gave off a massive aura that spread out like a wild gale, causing Zhao Fu's cloak to flutter backward. The Moon Immortals' bodies gave off moonlight, resisting this powerful ripple. Zhao Fu resisted this powerful aura as he walked forwards. Every step he took was incredibly difficult, and he had to resist the powerful aura with every step. As Zhao Fu walked forwards, the aura that the moonstone gave off became more and more terrifying, and it was as if it could easily blow away a 10,000-kilogram boulder. Zhao Fu walked forward step by step, and in the end, he reached the bottom of the moonstone. The moonstone did not give off any terrifying aura, and it became calm again. Looking at the moonstone in the sky, Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile. This was the final type of moon energy. Zhao Fu sat cross-legged and closed his eyes as he once again absorbed moon energy. The moonstone in the sky gave off bright moonlight, making it look like a real full moon. Countless traces of moonlight spilled down from the sky, creating a beautiful scene that seemed like an illusion. The moonlight gently landed on Zhao Fu's body, and the surroundings were also covered by moonlight. Zhao Fu's aura became ethereal and ethereal, making him seem like an expert who had transcended the mortal world. Even though Zhao Fu did not seem to be dangerous at all, the Moon Immortals' expressions became extremely serious. They could sense that Zhao Fu's body was nurturing an extremely terrifying moon energy, causing them to feel immense fear. Yu Wuxing said in shock, "Fusing 12 types of moon energy is so powerful, it's at least 100 times more powerful than our moon energy." Yu Yao also said in a shocked voice, "This is the most powerful moon energy I've ever seen. If he had the cultivation of a higher being, I might not even be able to block a few of his attacks before losing." The Red Moon Ridge said, "We must keep him in the 12 moons. Even if he cannot become a moon immortal, just this moon energy will be enough to change the 12 moons' fate and revitalize the 12 moons." The Moon Saintess looked at Zhao Fu and said seriously, "Before, he said that his ultimate goal was to ascend to the moon. Now that he has fused 12 types of moon energy, I wonder if he has the ability to do so." Yu Xianzi also looked at Zhao Fu and said seriously, "Ascending to the moon is something that we all dream of, and I hope that he can do it. That way we will have a trace of a chance." Hearing this, the Moon Immortals all looked excited and expectant. They had cultivated for countless years and had always wanted to ascend to the moon. However, many generations of Moon Immortals had not been able to do so, and they did not have the ability to do so. Zhao Fu had given them a trace of hope. Peak. Chapter 2887. Book 1. Chapter 331. Starlight. Massive amounts of moon power continuously gathered within Zhao Fu's body, gradually forming a round white star that gave off resplendent starlight. Zhao Fu did not suppress the other 11 stars within his body, and the 11 stars simultaneously gave off resplendent starlight. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out as a vast power poured out like a sea of moonlight, spreading out with the power to engulf the world and instantly covering all of 12 moons. At that moment, the people walking on the streets, the people talking, the people preparing to drink tea, the people buying goods, the people planting spirit herbs, everyone in the moon land froze as they sensed that terrifying wave of moon power, causing their hearts to feel terror. The 12 Moon Immortals on the stage looked at Zhao Fu, who was giving off heaven-toppling moon energy, in shock. Is this the power of fusing all of the moon energy? Isn't this too terrifying? Sensing this wave of moon power, the 12 Moons Immortals felt immense terror and felt as powerless as a boundless ocean. The abnormal changes were not over yet, and the 8 suns in the sky disappeared. Countless people in the center of the primal chaos region looked up curiously. Why had the suns disappeared? Countless experts' expressions fell as they looked at the sky in shock. They found that the suns had not disappeared, and were instead covered by a massive wave of power. Boom! A deafening explosion sounded out as the primal chaos world violently trembled. 12 massive, pure white moons giving off world-shaking auras appeared in the sky, giving off boundless moonlight. Daytime moon appearance. Countless people cried out in shock, not understanding what was going on. Their hearts beat quickly. What's going on? Why have the 12 moons appeared in the day and given off such terrifying auras? I think this was caused by the 12 moons. They control the source energy of the moon, and only they have the ability to do this. That's right. The 12 moons are the inheritors of the ancient 12 moons immortals, and the moon power they contain is the power of the moon in the sky. It's the purest moon power. The 12 moons are getting weaker with each generation, and no one has ascended to the moon yet. Could it be that someone will be able to ascend to the moon again? That can't be right. Someone can ascend to the moon? I remember that no one has been able to ascend to the moon for many years, not only the people of the December moon, but also the others. I don't think this is a simple matter. The arrival of the December sun must have been caused by an extremely strong power of the moon. This kind of thing is rarely seen in the past. I think the power of the December sun must have given birth to an incredible existence, and the month of December will usher in a huge change. Yes, I think so too, but we'll have to go to December to investigate the specifics. Dragon Clan. The dragon race leaders smiled as they looked at the 12 moons in the sky. They knew that their young master had succeeded. The purple-haired old man chuckled and said, "I was a little worried before, but now it seems that my worries were unnecessary. The young clan lord is really too amazing, and I really admire you." The silver-horned elder said happily, "This is just the beginning. Our young master will most likely ascend to the moon and grasp one of the world's most powerful innate source energies, the moon source energy. Just thinking about it makes me feel excited and excited. In the future, our dragon race might be able to possess it as well." The blue-robed fat old man laughed and said, "Since young master has the innate moon source, then our dragon clan will also have it. Young master is truly a blessing for our dragon clan." The black-robed old man smiled as he said, "If young master can grasp this type of source energy, how many source energies does young master grasp? The title of Child of Chaos belongs to young master. I can't think of anyone else who can compare to our young master." The blue-robed old man laughed as he said, "After young master obtains moon source energy, he will also obtain sun source energy. When that time comes, perhaps the primal chaos world's supreme emperor star will descend. This star only exists in legends, no one has ever awakened it before." The blue-robed fat old man said excitedly, "I look forward to that moment. If I can witness that scene, I'd even be willing to lose 100 years of my lifespan." The dignified old man lightly laughed as he said, "Calm down, don't be too excited. Moonland." The 12 moons hovered above and boundless moonlight shone down. Within the moonland, the countless people felt a wave of moon energy flow into their bodies, causing their bodies' constitution and power to become stronger and their injuries to recover. Countless moon people cheered and laughed. Even though they did not know what was happening, they understood that this was a great thing. The 12 moon immortals looked at the surrounding moonlight flowing into their bodies in shock. Even with their strength, the moonlight was still effective on them. Zhao Fu, who was sitting cross-legged under the moonstone, went through a transformation under the massive amount of moon energy and obtained a true moon body. Every drop of his blood and every strand of his hair contained powerful moon energy, and he could rival an innate moon immortal's moon body. Now, Zhao Fu had hundreds of times more moon energy than when he had first fused with the moon energy. Zhao Fu's body was now as light as air, and he had a great sense of the moon. Zhao Fu fulfilled the requirements to ascend to the moon. As long as Zhao Fu wanted to, Zhao Fu could ascend to the moon. After dispelling the moon energy within his body, Zhao Fu opened his eyes and boundless moonlight shot out. The moons in the sky disappeared, and the 8 suns once again appeared in the sky. Zhao Fu got up from the ground and came before the Moon Immortals and bowed. "Thank you, Moon Immortals, for giving me moon energy." If the Moon Immortals had not given Zhao Fu moon energy, Zhao Fu would not have been able to obtain 12 types of moon energy so quickly and have the constitution to ascend to the moon. As such, Zhao Fu felt quite grateful. The Moon Saintess smiled as she said, "You did not disappoint us. You fused 12 types of moon energy and now control the strongest moon energy of the 12 moons. We are all inferior to you." Yu Shumin lightly laughed as she said, "That's right, the moon energy you have now makes us all feel quite envious." Yu Yao lightly smiled as she said, "It's a pity that you're not a woman, or else you would definitely become the next Moon Immortal, and the most powerful Moon Immortal." Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "Moon Immortals, you're too kind." Yu Xuning looked at Zhao Fu as she said, "Now that you've grasped such powerful moon energy, even though you won't be able to become a Moon Immortal, we can give you a status that is not lower than a Moon Immortal's and will nurture you. I hope that you can stay in the 12 moons and serve the 12 moons." Zhao Fu felt a bit hesitant, but he did not know how many people he had promised, so he nodded and said, "All right." Hearing this, the Moon Immortals all smiled. Yu Xianzi asked caringly, "Can you ascend to the moon now?" Everyone looked at Zhao Fu in concern. This was something they all cared about. Ascending to the moon was something they had always been pursuing. Facing their expectant gazes, Zhao Fu smiled as he said, I can ascend to the moon at any time." Hearing this, the Moon Immortals all happily laughed. They did not have such an ability. Chapter 2888. Book 1. Chapter 332. Ascending to the moon. Moon Saintess smiled and said, "Back then, I laughed at you when I heard that you could ascend to the moon. I never thought that you would actually do it. I want to apologize to you." Zhao Fu smiled and said, "It's all right. Your Highness, you don't have to be so polite." Yu Yao asked curiously, "How does it feel to have the ability to ascend to the moon?" Zhao Fu thought for a moment before replying, "My body is very light. The moon in the sky has a pulling force towards me, and I can use this pulling force to ascend to the moon." Yu Qianshan said enviously, "We've cultivated for so long since we were young, but we've never felt this pulling force. We've also failed to forcefully ascend to the moon before. Perhaps we'll never be able to ascend to the moon in this lifetime. I hope that the next Moon Immortal will have this ability." Yu Wuxing sighed, "That's right. Ascending to the moon has always been our dream, but it's a distant dream." Yu Xianzi smiled and said, "There's no need to be so sad and disappointed. Yu Xian is our hope. He can ascend to the moon in our place." Yu Qianshan chuckled and said, "Then when Yu Xian ascends to the moon and returns, describe to us the scene on the moonstone." Yu Shumin said thoughtfully, "I wonder if we can borrow Yu Xian's pulling force to ascend together." Yu Wuxing said in surprise, "It's possible. Perhaps we can ascend together with Yu Xian. The key is how to use the pulling force within Yu Xian's body." Zhao Fu said, "I don't know how to borrow the pulling force, but I will cooperate with the Moon Immortals and do my best to help all of you ascend together." Yu Xianzi smiled and said, "That's all for now. We'll go back and study it properly to see if there's any way to borrow the pulling force. Yu Xian, you should go back and have a good rest. Prepare to ascend to the moon in the future. Only by reaching the moon will you be able to obtain the true moon source and the power of a Moon Immortal." Zhao Fu smiled and said, I understand." The 12 Moon Immortals went back to research the method, and Zhao Fu returned to his residence. The Moonland was in a festive mood. Yu Longlong and the others went to Zhao Fu's residence. Yu and Yu Longlong looked at Zhao Fu and asked, "Have you really fused 12 types of moon powers and have the ability to ascend to the moon?" Zhao Fu said with a smile, "You found out so soon?" Yu and said, "Now that the news has spread, how could we not know?" Because we are a little uncertain, we came to ask you. Zhao Fu smiled and said, It's true. I'm preparing to ascend to the moon now. Hearing this, the women finally confirmed that the person who had fused 12 types of moon powers was Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu had shocked them too much, and if they did not ask him personally, they would not have believed it. Now, Zhao Fu's treatment in December was like that of a moon immortal. Although Zhao Fu did not have a name, he could be called a nameless moon immortal. Yu Qin said softly, I was wrong in the past. I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Zhao Fu pulled her into his arms and said with a smile, I have also punished you, so let's forget about this matter. Yu Qin smiled and hugged Zhao Fu. Yu Longlong looked at Zhao Fu with a complicated gaze. Zhao Fu's status had changed too quickly. How long had it taken for him to go from a person from a small family to someone who could rival a moon immortal? In a few days, would his status be even higher than the moon immortals? He asked concernedly, What do you plan to do in the future? Zhao Fu smiled as he replied, After ascending to the moon, I'll fuse with the true source moon power. Don't worry, I won't mistreat you. You and I went up and hugged Zhao Fu as she said, Now, give us that type of moon power. Zhao Fu gave a slight smile. A few hours later, Moon Saintess pushed open Zhao Fu's door. Seeing the chaotic scene in front of her, her expression softened and she walked over. Afterwards, Zhao Fu hugged Moon Saintess and asked, What's wrong? Moon Saintess's face was red as she said, We tried all sorts of methods but found that it was very difficult to ascend to the moon, so I came to try your method. Zhao Fu smiled as he asked, How was it? Moon Saintess smiled as she nodded. After you fused with 12 types of moon power, the effects of this dual cultivation are more than 10 times better than before. Moreover, there are traces of weak traction power within my body. Even though it's weak, it's enough to make me happy. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, In the future, if you dual cultivate more, the traction power within your body will also become stronger. Moon Saintess smiled as she replied, Over the next few days, Zhao Fu spent time with Moon Saintess and the 6 moon attendant. The 6 moon attendants and Moon Saintess became more and more beautiful. Zhao Fu also planned to obtain the bronze shard. There were 4 bronze shards in the 12 moons, and the 1st moon faction, 4th moon faction, 7th moon faction, and 12th moon faction each had 1. As long as he collected these 4 bronze shards, he would only be a few pieces away from repairing that source artifact. Zhao Fu planned to find the 4th moon immortal Yu Yao first. He felt that she was quite easy to talk to, and it would be easier for him to obtain the bronze shard. At that moment, a female attendant came to inform him that the 4th moon immortal was looking for Zhao Fu. Hearing this, Zhao Fu lightly laughed. This was exactly what he wanted, and he went to the 4th moon faction. Yu Yao sat in a large hall, and there were 8 beautiful women beside her. They all gave off different auras. Some were pure, some were enchanting, some were fiery, and some were gentle. There was sunlight, and they all gave off powerful auras. They were most likely Yu Yao's moon attendants. The moment Zhao Fu entered, the 8 moon attendants sized up Zhao Fu. They knew why Yu Yao was looking for Zhao Fu, so they had made preparations. Zhao Fu bowed and asked, Moon Immortal, what business do you have with me? Yu Yao's face became red as she smiled and said, I know about the matter between you and Moon Saintess. I also want to ascend to the moon, so I wanted to ask you for a favor. As long as you're willing to help me, I can satisfy all of your conditions. What do you think? Zhao Fu felt quite delighted and smiled as he said, I want that bronze shard. Yu Yao looked quite surprised and asked, Why do you want that thing? Zhao Fu had long since thought of an excuse, so he smiled as he said, As my power continuously increases, I will definitely meet that origin child in the future. That bronze shard is something that he has been searching for all this time, so I want to keep it for myself. No problem, Yu Yao said with a smile. That's not a problem. That thing is meant to attract the origin child. If the origin child comes to December, we will give him the bronze shard. Consider it a favor for him. This bronze shard does not contain any origin power, so no one can use it. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "Thank you, Moon Immortal." Yu Yao smiled as she said, "It's just a small matter. You can make any other requests, and I will do my best to satisfy them." Zhao Fu replied, "I only have this one request. I don't have any other requests." Yu Yao gave a moving smile as she said, Come over then." Zhao Fu smiled as he nodded and walked over to Yu Yao. Chapter 2889. Introduction. The heavenly god barrier protecting the human world has been broken, and countless evil beasts have entered the human world, causing corpses to litter the land, blood to flow like rivers, and the people to be plunged into misery and suffering. The bloodlines of the ancient kings that have been sleeping have begun to awaken. The Lord's army conquers the world. New book. The War of the Crown Prince, seeking recommendation. Currently typing, please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 2890. Book 1. Chapter 333. Treasure Chest. With Zhao Fu's hard work, Zhao Fu finally obtained the first bronze shard. Yu Yao said with a satisfied look, "I heard from the saintess that you're very powerful, so I called my moon servants. However, they were not your match." Zhao Fu was about to get up and said with a smile, "Is there anything else, Your Highness Moon Immortal? If not, I'll be leaving first." Yu Yao pulled Zhao Fu and said charmingly, "Don't stay with us for a bit longer." Zhao Fu smiled and nodded. An hour later, Zhao Fu left the 4th moonland and planned to head to the 12th moonland. He had met the 12th moon immortal Yu Qianqian before and felt that it would be easier to obtain the bronze shard. However, before Zhao Fu could reach the 12th moonland, Red Moon Ridge called Zhao Fu over. Zhao Fu asked, "I wonder why Your Highness Moon Immortal is looking for me?" Red Moon Ridge lightly smiled and said, "I'll get straight to the point. We've seen the changes in the Saintess over the past few days, and I also want to dual cultivate with you." Seeing how direct Red Moon Ridge was, Zhao Fu also said straightforwardly, "Sure." Red Moon Ridge lightly smiled and said, "Let's begin then." A few hours later, Zhao Fu looked at Red Moon Ridge and the beautiful moon servants in his arms and said, "I'm leaving." Red Moon Ridge's face was red as she asked, "Where?" Zhao Fu did not hide anything and replied, "The 12th moonland." Red Moon Ridge smiled and said, "You're going there to dual cultivate with the Moon Immortal?" Zhao Fu lightly laughed and said, "Sort of. However, I'm mainly looking for bronze shards." Red Moon Ridge smiled and said, "Why are you looking for that thing? It's useless to you." Zhao Fu repeated his reason and asked, "The 12th moonland has a lot of information. I wonder if there are other bronze shards?" Red Moon Ridge thought about it and said, "I'm not too sure. Ever since the Child of Origin appeared, news of bronze shards has been spreading from all over the world." Zhao Fu was somewhat disappointed. He had thought that he could borrow the 12th moonland's power to gather the remaining shards. Seeing Zhao Fu's disappointed expression, the Red Moon Ridge comforted him. "I will find one for you," Zhao Fu said with a smile. "Thanks." Red Moon Ridge chuckled and said, "No need to thank me. Just consider it as a reward for dual cultivation. I don't want to take advantage of anyone. I will have to ask you for help in the future." Zhao Fu said with a smile, "No problem." Following this, Zhao Fu went to Decemberland. Yu Qianqian and the 5 moon attendants blushed as they looked at Zhao Fu. Before Zhao Fu could speak, Yu Qianqian spoke with a red face, "I know you came for the bronze fragment. After we dual cultivate, I will give the bronze fragment to you." Zhao Fu smiled and nodded. That night, Zhao Fu walked out of the palace with the 2nd bronze shard. He arrived at the 7th moon, where Yushirha and a few other moon attendants had been waiting for him for a long time. Yushirha blushed. "I'll leave this matter to you." Zhao Fu chuckled and walked towards Yushirha. In the middle of the night, Zhao Fu left the seventh moon. Now there was only one bronze fragment left, which was in the hands of the first moon immortal. Yu Xianzi felt that it would be difficult to deal with it, but with Zhao Fu's current status, she would not refuse if he asked her for the bronze fragment. Zhao Fu was just about to go to the first moon. Yu Wuxing walked out from the side and said in surprise, "You still have strength?" Zhao Fu chuckled and said, These women are not a problem for me." Yu Wuxing said in surprise, "You're really amazing. The saintess didn't praise you at all." Zhao Fu smiled and said in a playful tone, "Then why did you come to me?" Yu Wuxing's face turned red and she rolled her eyes at Zhao Fu. "What do you think?" Zhao Fu stepped forward and hugged Yu Wuxing. "Don't waste time." Yu Wuxing nodded with a red face. 2 hours later, Yu Wuxing lay in Zhao Fu's embrace with a red face. "If it wasn't for the fact that I wanted to ascend to the moon, I wouldn't have given it to you." Zhao Fu smiled and said teasingly, "All right. I won't touch you in the future." Yu Wuxing hurriedly said, "No, I'm already yours. You have to be responsible for me." Zhao Fu lightly chuckled and said, "No problem." Yu Wuxing said softly, "I've already thought about our future. If you stay in December, we'll help you become a higher being and we can ascend to the moon together." Zhao Fu looked quite surprised and looked at Yu Wuxing. Yu Wuxing looked at Zhao Fu with a red face and asked, "What is it? Don't you want to be with us?" Zhao Fu smiled and said, "No, if you're willing to become my woman, I won't mistreat you." Yu Wuxing nodded with a red face. In actuality, to Zhao Fu, he did not have any feelings for Yu Wuxing because it was impossible to have feelings for her just after meeting her once. However, because he had obtained her, Zhao Fu would take care of her out of responsibility. Zhao Fu had never thought that someone like Yu Wuxing, who had the face of an angel and the figure of a devil, would be so simple and gullible. Looking at the bashful Yu Wuxing in his embrace, Zhao Fu smiled and said, "I'm going." Yu Wuxing hugged Zhao Fu and said coquettishly, "No, stay with me for a while. Also, you've been busy all day. Can you rest for a while?" Seeing how concerned she was, Zhao Fu smiled and nodded. The next day, just as the sun rose, Zhao Fu arrived at the first moon. Yu Xianzi and the 9 beautiful women were already waiting in the hall. Zhao Fu looked at Yu Xianzi and the 9 beautiful women. The number 1 moon celestial's moon attendant was Zhao Fu's favorite. Yu Xianzi rolled her eyes at Zhao Fu and said, "Why did you come so late? We've been waiting for you for a few hours." Zhao Fu smiled and said, "Apologies for staying with Yu Wuxing for a bit longer." Yu Xianzi said, "Let's begin." Zhao Fu lightly smiled and said, "You're so direct? I thought that you were very mature and wouldn't do such things easily." Yu Xianzi lightly laughed and said, "Ascending to the moon is something that I've always dreamed of, and I'm willing to give up everything for it. Moreover, with your potential and looks, I'm benefiting from it. Why would I refuse?" Zhao Fu smiled and said, You're right." Zhao Fu looked at the 9 beautiful women and said with a trace of a smile, "I'm very satisfied with your moon attendants." The 9 beautiful women's faces became red. When they had heard that they would be serving Zhao Fu, they had felt much anticipation in their hearts. They had already heard about Zhao Fu's various matters. One of the beautiful women said, "Thank you for thinking so highly of us, Your Majesty. We'll properly serve you." Zhao Fu smiled and nodded before walking forwards. 6 or 7 hours later, Yu Xianzi handed an ancient bronze shard to Zhao Fu and said, "You already have 4 bronze shards. Do you still want to find more?" Zhao Fu nodded and said, "The more shards you have, the more likely it is that you'll be able to meet the Origin Child. Moreover, you can use the shards to negotiate with the Origin Child." Yu Xianzi smiled as she said, "As long as we ascend to the moon and obtain true Origin Moon energy, I'm sure that you won't be any weaker than that Origin Child." Zhao Fu said confidently, "Of course I'm more powerful than that Origin Child." Chapter 2891. Book 1, Zhao Fu. Yu Xianzi rolled her eyes at Zhao Fu and said, I was just praising you and you became so arrogant. You don't know how powerful the Sun of Origin is, right? Zhao Fu smiled as he said, Don't forget that I've seen the Sun of Origin before. Only then did Yu Xianzi remember that she had never seen the Sun of Origin before, but Zhao Fu had seen it before. Moreover, it was Zhao Fu who had provided them with information. Yu Xianzi said, You're hiding something, right? You didn't see the evil immortal's successor and the Sun of Origin from afar and instead came into contact with them. With how powerful Zhao Fu was, she did not believe that Zhao Fu had not come into contact with the two of them. She did not know that the evil immortal's successor, the Sun of Origin, was actually Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu smiled and did not explain as he said, I'm going to go back and prepare to ascend to the moon. Yu Xianzi said, Don't be so hasty. Wait for us. I can already sense that my cultivation has loosened. Soon we'll be able to ascend together. Moreover, even if you ascend, you won't know that you're on the moon, and it will be very difficult for you to obtain the moon's source energy. Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt that what she said made sense. He did not know anything about the moon. The moon was the place of the 12 moons, and they knew many things. Zhao Fu nodded, that's fine. Yu Xianzi looked at Zhao Fu and suddenly said, Thank you. Zhao Fu gave a strange smile as he asked, Why are you suddenly thanking me? Yu Xianzi smiled as she said, Thank you for what you've done for the 12 moons. Without you, we would not have been able to ascend to the moon, and without you, we would not have had any hope of reviving. Zhao Fu laughed. He had obtained 12 types of moon power and the bodies of many moon immortals, yet they still had to thank Zhao Fu. This made Zhao Fu feel quite embarrassed. Zhao Fu left the first moon and Yu Shumin found Zhao Fu. Yu Shumin looked at Zhao Fu with a hint of charm. I called you over, I don't need to say anything else, right? Zhao Fu nodded with a smile. A few days later, Zhao Fu had gone to all 12 moon immortals and moon attendants and obtained many moon immortals. In order to save time and ascend to the moon as soon as possible, Yu Xianzi requested that Zhao Fu and the 12 moon immortals dual cultivate together. Some of the moon immortals felt quite embarrassed, as they could accept having the moon attendants serve Zhao Fu together. After all, the moon attendants were their subordinates while the moon immortals were their friends and sisters. However, for the sake of being able to ascend to the moon, for the sake of making a breakthrough in their cultivation, the many moon immortals still agreed to it. Sometimes they would appear beside a stream, sometimes in a forest, sometimes in a garden, and sometimes in a palace. Zhao Fu and the many moon immortals could be seen everywhere. With Zhao Fu's painstaking help, the 12 moon immortals grew more and more beautiful, and their realms were about to break through. Zhao Fu had poured quite a bit of the 12 moon immortals' energy and core energy into their bodies. Otherwise, it would be impossible for their breakthroughs to be so fast. The 12 moon immortals were in seclusion, so Zhao Fu had some time. He found a secluded place to refine the 4 bronze fragments he had obtained. The primal chaos energy in his body grew much stronger. Zhao Fu returned to the Yu family. Zhao Fu had started from there. He had advanced step by step, becoming in existence on the same level as the moon immortals. Yu Shaoqian, Yulan, and their mothers welcomed Zhao Fu's return. No one had expected Zhao Fu's performance today. Now, the Yu family's position was practically unshakable. In fact, it was growing more and more noble. Many people came to curry favor with them. Within the room, Yu Rong warmly called out, Husband, why did you come back? Zhao Fu smiled. After being away for so long, I missed all of you. Also, I'll be ascending to the moon soon. Hearing that, the women were a bit envious. Ascending to the moon was a lifelong dream of countless moon clansmen. Yu Shaoqian sighed. With our talent, it's impossible in this lifetime. Yulan was also disappointed. Although I don't want to admit it, in the end, we're from a small family. There's no hope of ascending to the moon. Zhao Fu also knew that it was impossible for them to ascend to the moon. Even the moon immortals were unable to do so. Zhao Fu could increase their power, but there was a limit. Zhao Fu was unable to turn an ordinary person into a peerless genius. However, thinking about it, Zhao Fu smiled. Don't be sad. I can let you live on the moon in the future. Yu Shaoqian was startled. Really? Yu Shaoqian smiled. Yes, I believe you. Now that the women knew of Zhao Fu's potential, they believed that Zhao Fu had the ability to do so. They looked forward to their days on the moon. Perhaps they had misunderstood. Right now, Zhao Fu was unable to bring them to the 12 moons, but he could bring them to the Qin world's moon. Now that the sun and moon in Qin world belonged to the Heaven Awakened world, Zhao Fu suddenly had the idea of creating his own sun and moon. After staying in the Yu family for a few days, Zhao Fu returned to the moon world. The 12 moons had broken through and reached the half-celestial mirror world. Now that there were 12 half-celestials, the 12 moons' power had become extremely terrifying. The main thing was that their cultivations had been just a bit away from breaking through, and Zhao Fu had used the 12 moons' power and source energy to help them. It was a pity that their cultivations had reached the half-celestial realm, so Zhao Fu's 6 desires demonic qi was useless against them. If he could control the 12 moons, Zhao Fu would be able to sweep through the outer domains. Thinking about how Zhao Fu could control the 12 moons gratefully served Zhao Fu, and the 12 moons enjoyed this for a few more days. Yu Xianzi's face was red as she lay in Zhao Fu's embrace. It's time to ascend to the moon. Now that we've broken through and with your help, we can sense that pulling power. The moon saintess happily smiled as she said, We've waited for this day for too long. If you could appear a bit later, we would be able to ascend to the moon earlier. Yu Wuxing nodded with a red face. I feel like I like you more and more. If you dare to betray me in the future, I'll kill you. Yu Xianzi lightly laughed as she said, We've already treated you like this, so if you still betray us, not only will I kill you, but I'll also destroy your soul. You'd better know what's good for you. Zhao Fu awkwardly smiled and did not dare to reveal his true identity. After all, they were from 2 different worlds. Zhao Fu then asked curiously, What's it like on the moon? Yu Shumin smiled as she said, It's impossible to describe with words. You'll know when we ascend to the moon together. Seeing it with your own eyes will be more interesting than talking about it. Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded. Everyone started to prepare to ascend to the moon, and Yu Xianzi ordered people to build a 1,000-meter tall moon platform. They were going to ascend to the moon from there. Yu Xianzi had great use for this platform. Chapter 2892. Introduction. The heavenly god barrier protecting the human world has been broken, and countless evil beasts have entered the human world, causing corpses to litter the land, blood to flow like rivers, and the people to be plunged into misery and suffering. The bloodlines of the ancient kings that have been sleeping have begun to awaken. The new book, The Lord's Army Conquers the World, War of the Crown Princes, has been signed. Currently typing, please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 2893. Book 1. Chapter 335. Moon Ascension. When everyone ascended to the moon, they would draw on heaven and earth power and be guided by moonlight. The stage would also be affected by these 2 powers, forming a moon ascension stage. In the future, if anyone wanted to ascend to the moon, it would be much more convenient with this stage. If one cultivated here, not only would they be able to absorb more moon power, but it would also be easier for them to ascend. At night, 12 moons hung in the sky, giving off bright moonlight. Everyone came to the top of the moon ascension stage, and there were countless people standing below. This was a historic scene, and countless people excitedly looked at the moon ascension stage. For this moment, the 12 moon immortals had all put on plain white palace dresses, and under the moonlight, they looked like real celestial maidens. Zhao Fu had also changed into a white cloak. Yu Xianzi looked at the moons in the sky and said, "Let's begin." The others smiled and nodded. The moon immortals closed their eyes and gathered their moon power, forming an orb of white light within their bodies, and a wave of moonlight spread out from their bodies. The 12 white stars within Zhao Fu's body gave off a massive wave of moon power, causing Zhao Fu's body to give off intense moonlight. He alone suppressed the moonlight from the other 12 moon immortals. Boom! An explosion sounded out in the sky as the 12 moons in the sky gave off a boundless aura. The moonlight they gave off became even brighter, making the night seem as bright as day. A massive pulling force descended from the sky and landed on the moon ascension stage, and a massive wave of moon power spread out from the moon ascension stage. The moon immortals' bodies became incredibly light, and they were pulled by that pulling force. Their bodies slowly left the ground and started to ascend. The moon immortals were untainted by even a speck of dust and looked incredibly beautiful. Their dresses fluttered in the wind, making them look like fairies flying to the moon. The scene on Zhao Fu's side was completely different. Because Zhao Fu's moon power was much more powerful than the moon immortals, the pulling force he felt was much stronger. As such, Zhao Fu's body was instantly pulled into the sky and continued to fly upwards, shooting towards the moons like a white blur. Looking at this scene, countless people were filled with joy and excitement. However, they were afraid of disturbing the moon immortal, so they did not dare to make a sound. They could only stare at this scene with wide eyes, wanting to remember it forever. Zhao Fu's figure quickly disappeared. The 12 moons immortals' figures continued to ascend and gradually became smaller. Many of the experts around the 12 moons sensed this, and they looked at the 12 figures in the sky with shocked expressions. It had been many years since a moon immortal had ascended to the moon, but today, 12 moon immortals had ascended together. In the end, all of their figures disappeared before everyone's eyes. Yu Xianzi, who was in the sky, called out, "Can you slow down a bit? If you go any faster, we won't be able to catch up to you." Above them, Zhao Fu was a little embarrassed. "You can't blame me for this. It's that pulling force that's pulling me. Now I'll suppress that pulling force. You guys hurry up and fly up." The girls also sped up and flew to Zhao Fu's side. Zhao Fu asked, "How long until we can fly to the moon?" Yu Xianzi chuckled. "Do you think it's easy to ascend to the moon? I told you that this is just the beginning." Zhao Fu felt quite startled. "Isn't it just flying up?" Yu Xianzi smiled as she said, "Of course it's not that simple. You'll know soon enough." The group continued to fly upwards. As they went higher and higher, the temperature became colder and colder. Yu Xianzi smiled as she said, "This is a test. The higher we go, the colder it will be." Zhao Fu did not mind this. It was just a bit colder. He could endure it. The group continued to fly upwards. The surrounding temperature was extremely cold, and it felt as if it could instantly freeze a person. The crux was that ordinary powers could not resist this cold, and only after Zhao Fu and the others used their moon energy to form a thick defensive barrier was they able to resist this coldness. As they continued to ascend, the moon became bigger and bigger. However, they soon stopped because they had encountered a world barrier. The world barrier was a formless barrier that could not be touched or seen. It was a barrier created by the world, and one could not pass through it. As long as one walked forward, one would return to the same spot in the next second. If one tried to forcefully break through it, one would be lost in chaotic spacetime. There were 2 uses for this. The first was to protect the sun and moon, preventing anyone from casually ascending to the sun and moon. The second was to project the 8 suns and moons into the primal chaos world's various mystic realms and small world. This was because those mystic realms and small worlds had the same laws as the primal chaos world, and with the world barrier, it was easy to project the sun and moon into any spatial mystic realm. The world barrier was quite difficult to break, and if one wanted to break through it, they could only use other methods. Zhao Fu and the other moon immortals could use moon energy to fuse into the world barrier and pass through it. The 12 Moon Immortals' bodies gave off intense moonlight as they lightly floated forwards. They came before the formless barrier, and the 12 Moon Immortals' bodies slowly fused into the formless barrier, causing their bodies to disappear. Zhao Fu also gave off a wave of moon energy, causing his body to give off intense moonlight as he floated forwards. Zhao Fu also slowly fused into the world barrier. This feeling was quite strange, as if his body was slowly fusing into jelly. After everyone fused into it, they arrived at a pitch-black space. Because everyone was giving off intense moonlight, their surroundings were not dark. This was the inner region of the world barrier, and not only was the world barrier incredibly big, but it was also incredibly thick. Yu Xianzi said, "Everyone, follow the guiding force and don't move around recklessly, or else you'll be pulled into other mystic realms or small worlds." Everyone understood and carefully floated forwards. The feeling of floating within the world barrier was the same as entering the barrier. It was as if they were slowly moving through jelly. After advancing for an hour, everyone was still drifting forwards. Fortunately, there was a guiding force, or else they might accidentally enter other mystic realms or small world. Another 2 hours later, everyone finally left the world barrier and arrived at a space filled with moonlight. In front of them were 12 moons, which could also be called 12 massive white planets. It was impossible to describe how big they were, and in front of the 12 white planets, they were not even comparable to a speck of dust. This scene was incredibly shocking. Just as Zhao Fu was about to advance, he was blocked by a white transparent block. Yu Xianzi explained, "This is an astral moon, a product of highly condensed moon energy. It's incredibly tough and difficult to break, and it's also very thick. If we break the astral moon, the moon energy will quickly repair it, so let's not break the astral moon and continue to use the fusing method to pass through this astral moon." Zhao Fu did not understand anything and could only listen to Yu Xianzi's arrangements. Zhao Fu plucked another blade of grass and discovered that it also contained the power of the moon. To ordinary people, it was another precious spirit herb. The moon was a treasure trove. There were all sorts of useful things, and everything was precious. After all, no one had been able to land on the moon for many years. Moon Saint called out, "Yu Xian, come here." The other Moon Immortals also smiled as they looked at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu walked over and asked curiously, "What's wrong?" The Moon Saintess smiled and said, "I really have to thank you. Without you, we wouldn't be where we are today." Yu Shumin sighed as she said, "Ever since you appeared in our world seems to have become different, and it's much happier than before." Yu Xianzi smiled as she said, "We've come to the moon, and we plan to live here in the future. You can stay here with us." Yu Wuxing said with a red face, "We can always live happily on the moon." Zhao Fu lightly laughed. He would not be able to endure living on the moon, and he said, "No, I still have many things to take care of." Looking at the disbelieving Zhao Fu, Yu Wuxing asked, "What things could you have? Are they as important as us? Also, this is the most suitable place to cultivate moon energy. Why not stay here?" Zhao Fu said, "I can't tell you that. In any case, I won't be staying on the moon." Yu Wuxing felt quite disappointed. Yu Xianzi looked at Zhao Fu and felt a trace of anger as she asked, "Are you saying that you'll leave us after fusing with the 12 origins of moon energy?" Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "I'll leave for now because I have many things to take care of. I'll come back after I'm done." Yu Wuxing lightly harumphed, "That's more like it. We know that your identity is not simple, so we won't force you to do anything. Just remember to come back and find us." Yu Wuxing's expression softened as she said, "Let's go. Let's go to the Moon Palace." The Moon Palace was where the Moon Immortal had lived, and it had been personally built by the Moon Immortal. It was also the place where the moon energy was the most concentrated, and perhaps the moon source energy that Zhao Fu needed could be found there. That was true source energy, and it contained power that could alarm gods and ghosts. Everyone nodded and walked forwards. A while later, they came to a vast palace that was made of jade tiles and green bricks, and it looked quite elegant and simple. This was the Moon Palace, and even though countless years had passed, apart from the fact that there were no people here, nothing had changed. There was no dust, and it was as if there was a massive wave of celestial power protecting this palace. This wave of celestial power was most likely the first Moon Immortal's celestial power, and it was many times more powerful than ordinary celestials' celestial power. It could be said that the first Moon Immortal was incredibly powerful. The Moon Immortal and the others walked forwards. A ray of moonlight descended from the sky, shining on the Moon Immortal and the others' bodies. A moon mark appeared on the Moon Immortal's forehead, and Zhao Fu was quite amused as a moon mark appeared on his face. After the ray of moonlight disappeared, everyone's moon marks disappeared, and with a creak, the palace's doors slowly opened. The Moon Immortal and the others led the others into the palace. Such a large palace was split into many regions, and they did not go to those regions. Instead, they went deeper into the palace and came to a large hall. Within the palace, there was a 3-meter-tall jade statue of a lively woman. She looked incredibly beautiful and tall, and she gave off an otherworldly aura. She was most likely the original Moon Immortal, and the statue had most likely been carved by someone else, not by the Moon Immortal herself. This was the core of the Moon Palace, and it was the place that controlled the Moon Palace. Yu Wuxing walked forwards by herself, and because this was the first moon, only the first moon Yu Wuxing could go up. The other moons also had their own moon palaces, and only the corresponding Moon Immortal could go up. She came before the statue, and a massive wave of moon power covered Yu Wuxing. The statue gave off faint moonlight, which condensed into a crescent-white jade that slowly floated towards Yu Wuxing. In the end, it fused into Yu Wuxing's body, and Yu Wuxing gained control over the Moon Palace. Chapter 2895. Volume 1, Chapter 337. Battle Boom. An explosion sounded out as the Moon Palace gave off countless immortal lights, and a massive shockwave spread out. The Moon Palace had welcomed its new master. The huge moon also seemed to have become different. The powerful feeling of controlling the Moon Palace and the moon made Yu Xianzi smile. The moon goddess chuckled and said, "Congratulations, fairy." Seeing Yu Xianzi control the Moon Palace, the other women were also happy for her and were full of anticipation for themselves to control the Moon Palace. Yu Xianzi lightly nodded and waved her hand, causing a ray of moonlight to shoot out. A scene appeared before everyone's eyes. It was the moon-reaching platform, and it was surrounded by countless people. They looked up at the sky, their hearts filled with hope. It was the night of the second day, and the 12 moons were still hanging high in the sky. Controlling the Moon Palace would allow one to communicate with the lower realm. Yu Xianzi stretched out a finger and pointed, and a powerful beam of moonlight descended from the lower realm and landed on the moon platform. Yu Xianzi's voice sounded out, "We've reached the moon." Immediately, the entire place was in an uproar, and countless people looked excited. Some could not help but scream, some jumped in joy, and some hugged each other. After so many years, the 12 moons had finally reached the moon. Countless people's hopes had been realized, so how could they not be excited? Successfully landing on the moon meant that the 12 moons would be revived. Controlling the 12 moons meant controlling countless resources and all kinds of benefit. Seeing the countless people's excited and happy expressions, the Moon Immortals also smiled. Yu Xianzi said, "Leave everything to the moon attendants. We'll go down after a while." The Moon Immortals had successfully landed on the moon for the first time, and with this experience, they could descend at any time. After saying this, Yu Xianzi withdrew her power, and the scene disappeared. The beam of moonlight also dissipated, and countless people started to leave. Under the management of the moon attendants, they were ready to celebrate after the Moon Immortals returned. Zhao Fu looked at Yu Xianzi and asked with concern, "Where is the origin of the moon?" Yu Xianzi pouted and said, "Why are you in such a hurry? Come with me." Yuxianzi stretched out a hand and the white jade crescent appeared in her palm, turning into a ray of light that shot towards the statue. The statue gave off a formless moon energy, and a 4-meter-tall, 3-meter-wide white door of light appeared behind the statue. Zhao Fu looked at the white door curiously. Yuxianzi walked forwards, and Zhao Fu immediately followed behind her. The other moon immortals also smiled as they walked towards the door of light. They arrived at a vast space that was white and had a mirror-like surface. There was nothing inside, only a massive white orb of light that gave off waves of the purest and most powerful moon power. Apart from Zhao Fu, the other moon immortals all felt a wave of pressure. This was true moon source energy, and it was much more powerful than the moon source energy they controlled. Although Zhao Fu did not feel any pressure, he was still very shocked in his heart. This true source of moon energy was too shocking. Yuxianzi explained, "This is the moon source energy extracted from the core of the moon by the original moon immortals using a heavenly technique. Only a trace of it can be extracted every year, and this much source energy is the result of countless years of extraction, so it's extremely precious. According to the rules, only the first moon immortal can have it, but I'm the first moon immortal, so I can give you this source energy." Zhao Fu smiled and said, "Thank you very much." Yuxianzi smiled and said, "Let's go forward together." Zhao Fu nodded and walked forward with Yuxianzi. The other 11 moon immortals stood in place and looked at Zhao Fu and Yuxianzi. When they arrived under the huge orb of light, Yuxianzi smiled and said, "You can now absorb this source energy like how you absorb moonstones. The only difference is that this moon source is stronger, so you have to be careful or else there might be some danger." Zhao Fu nodded with a smile, and could not wait to sit cross-legged on the ground. Yuxianzi also smiled and sat cross-legged on the ground. She also wanted to absorb this true moon source energy. Boom! Just as Yuxianzi closed her eyes, before she could absorb the moon source energy, she heard a massive explosion sound out. She opened her eyes and saw that Zhao Fu's body was giving off moonlight, and there was a massive suction force. Traces of moon source energy spiraled down from the sky and entered Zhao Fu's body. The first white star within Zhao Fu's body continuously absorbed the source energy and gave off a shocking aura. Seeing the source energy being absorbed by Zhao Fu, Yuxianzi also closed her eyes and started to absorb the source energy. However, only a few traces of moon source energy spiraled down and entered her body. Yuxianzi's body trembled, and she felt an immense amount of moon source energy enter her body. This moon source energy was simply too powerful. After absorbing for a while, Yuxianzi opened her eyes and looked at Zhao Fu with a confused expression. How could he absorb so much moon source energy? The other moon immortals also looked quite shocked. Before comparing, they found that Zhao Fu was able to absorb so much moon source energy, much more than the moon immortals. If they did not know, they would have thought that he was a real moon immortal. This was mainly related to one's constitution and body's power. Zhao Fu had a more powerful moon source energy and constitution, and he was more compatible with moon source energy, which was why he was able to absorb so much moon source energy. Yuxianzi felt quite dissatisfied. She was a half-step celestial. How could she lose to a measly Emperor Heaven Realm cultivator? Boom! Yuxianzi gathered the moon source energy within her body, and dozens of traces of moon source energy spiraled down and fused into Yuxianzi's body. Even though Yuxianzi was much faster, she was still much slower than Zhao Fu. Yuxianzi could not help but sigh. Indeed, she could not compare to Zhao Fu. As such, she did not bother about these things and focused on absorbing moon source energy. Previously, Zhao Fu had said that he could only extract a trace of moon origin energy every year. This much moon origin energy was the result of countless years of effort. If he absorbed it all, he would have to wait for a long time, unless he could go to the moon's core. However, apart from innate moon immortals, no one else could do such a thing, so it was almost impossible. Zhao Fu sat cross-legged on the ground and continuously absorbed moon source energy, and the terrifying ripples he gave off became stronger and stronger. Yu Yao said in shock, "His constitution is simply too terrifying. An ordinary Emperor Heaven Realm cultivator can absorb a trace of moon source energy, and if they absorb more, they might explode. If they absorb 3 traces, they might explode, but he can absorb so much moon source energy." Yu Xianzi looked at Zhao Fu and said in agreement, "I knew that his constitution was quite monstrous, but I never thought that it would be this monstrous." Yu Xuaning said softly, "This boy's identity is becoming more and more suspicious. I don't believe his words. Just an ordinary person with a moon race bloodline? That's a joke." Chapter 2896. Book 1. Chapter 338. Soul Formation. Yue Yao said, "Now that things have come to this, his identity and constitution are no longer important." Hearing this, Yu Xuaning nodded. "Indeed, there's no point in saying all this now." Yu Yao smiled as she said, "Right now, we don't know how much essence moon power his body can absorb. Moreover, there are still 11 types of essence moon power that he can absorb. I believe that when that time comes, the moon power within his body will not be any weaker than an innate moon immortal's." Yu Shumin said somewhat seriously, "No, I feel that the moon power he possesses will be even more terrifying than an innate moon immortal's. After all, the innate moon immortal only grasped 1 type of essence moon power, while he grasped 12. Yu Dancing Star said in agreement, "Right now, he definitely can't compare to the moon immortal. However, I believe that in the future, he will definitely be even more terrifying than the moon immortal." As Zhao Fu absorbed more and more essence moon power, the terrifying ripples that his body gave off became more and more powerful, and more than half of the massive orb of light in the sky was gone. Seeing so much of the essence moon power that had been accumulated over so many years was indeed quite heart-wrenching. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the first round white star within Zhao Fu's body exploded out with blinding moonlight, and a boundless wave of moon power flowed out of Zhao Fu's body. Beside him, Yu Xianzi suddenly opened her eyes, and her body gave off a wave of moonlight that blocked the boundless moon power. The other moon immortals looked shocked, not knowing what was going on. The light from the round star within Zhao Fu's body gradually dimmed, and a moon that was exactly the same as the moon appeared. It was as big as a fist, and it was 2 or 3 times bigger than the round star from before. The power that this moon gave off was far greater than the round star's power. As this moon power filled his body, Zhao Fu's body became illusory, and he became an illusory image condensed from moonlight. Yu Shumin said in shock, "What's going on? Why do I feel that his body is turning into a moon? His body is turning into essence moon power." Yu Shumin replied seriously, "I feel that it's a bit like an innate moon constitution, but it's a bit different." Yu Yao asked in shock, "Innate moon constitution? Isn't that a physique that only innate moon immortals have?" Yu Shumin nodded and replied, "Yes, but the innate moon body looks like a moon, and the moon energy it emits is even stronger, and it feels even more illusory. Most importantly, the innate moon body can condense its own source moon energy, and doesn't need to rely on absorbing other source moon energy. Right now, he doesn't have any of these things. He only has a moon body, but it's still very shocking. Even we, as moon immortals, can't do this. Right now, he has only absorbed the origin energy of the first moon. If he absorbs a few more, I wonder if he will be able to obtain the innate moon constitution." Yu Wuxing said in shock, "I think it's possible. If he has an innate moon constitution, then he would truly be in existence like an innate moon immortal. He would also be the first person in the history of our Yu clan to achieve this." A smile appeared on Yu Xuaning's face. "I still hope that he can obtain the innate moon constitution. It will be very beneficial to us." Yu Yao lightly smiled and said, That's right, if he can obtain the innate moon constitution, it will be very beneficial to us. We have to help him as much as possible. At that moment, Zhao Fu slowly opened his eyes, and his moonlight-like body became corporeal again. Sensing the changes in the moon energy within his body, he smiled. The true source moon energy was much stronger than the previous source moon energy, causing the round star within Zhao Fu's body to become a real moon. Zhao Fu stood up and smiled as he said to Yu Xianzi, "I'll be leaving first." Yu Xianzi lightly smiled and said, "I never thought that you would absorb moon energy so quickly. You're even more amazing than me, a half-immortal. You can leave first. I'll stay here and continue absorbing moon energy. We'll meet again in a while." Zhao Fu nodded and walked in front of the other moon immortals. Yu Shumin said, "Now that we've confirmed that there's no danger, everyone else can return to your respective moon palaces. Yu Xian, you and Xuening can return to the second moon palace." The other moon immortals nodded. They had been looking forward to their own moon palaces for a long time. The moon immortals left the moon palaces and flew towards different moon palaces. Zhao Fu followed the second moon immortal and flew towards the second moon. When they arrived at the second moon, the surroundings were the same as the first moon. There were white plants and some were made of jade. There were no living creatures, and it seemed quite cold and cheerless. Yu Xuening and Zhao Fu walked towards the second moon palace. Just as they came to the second moon palace, a snow-white rabbit squatted at the entrance. Seeing Yu Shumin, it said in a childish voice, "Owner, you've finally ascended to the moon." Yu Xuening looked quite confused. Zhao Fu was quite curious. This was the first time he had seen a living creature on the moon, and it seemed to be the legendary Yu Rabbit. Yu Xuening asked in confusion, "You are?" Yu Rabbit hopped onto Yu Xuening's body. "I'm the Moon Palace's spirit, and you're the master of the second Moon Palace, so you're naturally my master. Moreover, I knew of your existence and thought that you wouldn't be able to ascend to the moon." Yu Xuening understood and smiled as she stroked Yu Rabbit's little head. "I remember now. Back then, the second moon immortal was especially fond of small animals, so the second moon palace had a guardian spirit. I never thought that after so many years you would still exist." Yu Rabbit giggled as she said, "I'm something created by the original master, and a trace of my source energy fused with the moon palace. As long as the moon palace exists, I will exist. Unless the moon immortal ascends, I will always be in a deep sleep." Yu Xuening smiled as she said, "This is an exception. If I don't have anyone's help, I might not be able to ascend, and you might always be in a deep sleep." Yu Rabbit lay comfortably in Yu Shumin's embrace and asked curiously, "Master, who can help you? You're the moon immortal, so shouldn't you be the most powerful?" Yu Xuening smiled as she shook her head. "The person beside me is." Yu Rabbit looked at Zhao Fu with her black eyes, and Zhao Fu smiled as he looked at Yu Rabbit. Yu Rabbit said in shock, "Who is he? How does he have such powerful moon energy? The aura he gives off is similar to the aura that the original master gave off." Yu Xuening smiled as she introduced. "He's called Yu Xian, and he's the person with the strongest moon energy in the 12 moons. He's also someone who has a chance of becoming an innate moon immortal." Yu Rabbit said in shock, "Is that so? That's too amazing." Zhao Fu smiled as he said, It's just SOSO. Yu Xuening lightly smiled as she said, "Let's go." Zhao Fu nodded. Yu Xuening hugged Yu Rabbit and walked into the Moon Palace. They went deep into the Moon Palace and came to a large hall. There was also a jade statue in the hall. Chapter 2897. Book 1. Chapter 339. Immortal Palace. This statue was the same height as the previous one, but it looked different. This statue was of a beautiful woman hugging a rabbit, which was most likely Yu Tuesday. Yu Xuening hugged Yu Tu and walked forwards, and the statue gave off boundless moonlight. A crescent moon stone appeared in the air, and slowly floated in front of Yu Xuening before fusing into her body. Yu Xuening was now the owner of the Moon Palace. Following this, Yu Xuening opened the space where the source moon energy was, and this space was the same as before. Yu Xuening placed Yu Tu on the ground and walked forwards. Zhao Fu also walked over. Yu Tu felt quite confused and did not know what Zhao Fu was doing. Didn't he already have a very powerful source moon energy? Yu Xuening looked at Zhao Fu and smiled as she said, "Let's begin." Zhao Fu smiled and nodded. The two of them sat cross-legged on the ground and closed their eyes. Their bodies gave off an attractive force, and the traces of source moon energy in the sky spun as they descended and entered Zhao Fu and Yu Xuening's bodies. The source moon energy that entered Zhao Fu's body was much more than Yu Xuening's. Yu Tu stared with wide eyes. How can this person absorb so much source moon energy? Is he a moon immortal, or is Master a moon immortal? Zhao Fu focused on absorbing the source moon energy into the second white star, which continuously absorbed the powerful source moon energy. Boom! A while later, a massive explosion sounded out as the first white star within Zhao Fu's body exploded out with blinding moonlight, and a boundless wave of moon energy flowed out of Zhao Fu's body. The first star within Zhao Fu's body gave off blinding moonlight, and a moon that looked exactly like the moon appeared. It was as big as a fist and gave off a massive wave of moon energy. The massive wave of moon power filled Zhao Fu's body, causing Zhao Fu's body to once again become illusory, and his body became somewhat hazy. A look of shock appeared on Yu Xuening's face. It's just as they thought. The moon energy within Zhao Fu's body has become even more powerful, and his body has become even more illusory. He's one step closer to the innate moon constitution. It's possible that he can obtain the innate moon constitution. Yu Tu was so shocked that she was at a loss for words. Even with all of her experience, she had never thought that Zhao Fu would be in such a situation. Zhao Fu opened his eyes and his body once again became corporeal. Sensing the more powerful moon energy in his body, he smiled and said to Yu Xuening, "I'm going to the other moons." Yu Xuening nodded with a smile. Zhao Fu got up and left the second moon and flew towards the third moon. After coming to the third moon, the scene was the same. Zhao Fu walked to the third moon palace and wanted to directly enter, but he was repelled by a formless energy. He was not a moon immortal and did not have the qualifications to enter. Zhao Fu felt quite helpless and stood at the door as he called out to Yu Shumin. After a while, Yu Shumin walked out dripping wet and said apologetically, "I just washed up in the moonlight spring." Zhao Fu looked at Yu Shumin's fair skin and smiled as he brought her into his embrace. "Why didn't you fuse with moon energy first? Why did you wash up?" Yu Shumin's face became red as she replied, "I was waiting for you." Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "What kind of place is the moonlight spring? Why do I feel like you're even more alluring after washing up?" Yu Shumin said with a red face, "The moonlight spring is a spring next to the moon liquid spring. A portion of the moon liquid spring's moon liquid will flow into the moonlight spring, and it has miraculous effects." Moon liquid spring? Zhao Fu remembered that the moon liquid was extremely precious. Back then, he had made the moon holy maiden search for it for a long time, but to no avail. Zhao Fu said with interest, "Take me to take a look." Yu Shumin nodded and brought Zhao Fu into the moon palace. They then arrived at a circular platform, which was more than 10 meters tall and 100 meters wide. It was made of jade, and there were a few maidservants' statues around it, which were also made of jade. There was a 1-meter-wide hole on the platform, from which white water flowed out and gave off moonlight. There was also a powerful wave of moon energy, and there was a dozens of meter-wide hole below, from which clear spring water flowed out and gave off faint moonlight. The 1-meter-wide spring above should be the moon liquid spring. This spring was indeed a little small, and it seemed that the moon liquid was also very precious. The spring below should be the moonlight spring. Zhao Fu squatted down and extended his hand into the moonlight spring. He immediately felt that the spring water indeed had a miraculous effect, and could improve his physique. Zhao Fu jumped into the spring, intending to wash his body. Yu Shumin's face turned slightly red. Aren't you going to fuse with the moon force as well? Zhao Fu smiled and said, I'll fuse with it later. You can come down as well. Yu Shumin also descended into the spring. After a friendly exchange, they arrived at the third moon palace's main hall. There was also a statue inside which was also 3 meters tall. It was carved with the appearance of a slender woman with a pure temperament. She should be the original moon immortal on the earth. Yu Shumin's face was flushed red as she opened the space where the source energy was stored. After the two of them entered, they sat cross-legged and absorbed the source moon energy. Strands of source moon energy continuously fused into their bodies. An hour later, boom! A loud explosion sounded out as the third star in Zhao Fu's body gave off countless rays of moonlight. Zhao Fu's body also gave off a massive wave of moon energy. Yu Shumin, who was at the side, opened her eyes and understood that Zhao Fu had already fused with the source moon energy. The circular star once again turned into a moon, emitting a faint moonlight. A powerful wave of moon energy filled Zhao Fu's body, and Zhao Fu's body once again turned into an illusory image condensed from the moonlight. His figure became even more blurry, and it was no longer possible to see what Zhao Fu looked like. Yu Shumin looked at Zhao Fu in shock, and understood that Zhao Fu was one step closer to the innate moon body. Zhao Fu opened his eyes, his body turned corporeal, and revealed a trace of a smile. Yu Shumin said with a smile, I feel that you will soon obtain the innate moon body. If you have the innate moon body, then you will be in existence like the innate moon immortal. Zhao Fu said with a smile, and, if I have the ability in the future, I will also help you obtain the innate moon body. Yu Shumin chuckled, and, it's not a waste for us to give ourselves to you. Zhao Fu said with a smile, I've been gone for 4 months. Yu Shumin nodded. When Zhao Fu arrived at the fourth moon palace, the scene had not changed at all. Zhao Fu walked in front of the fourth moon palace, and the palace doors of the fourth moon palace opened. Without waiting for Zhao Fu to call out, he smiled and walked in. After arriving at the source space, the fourth moon immortal was already absorbing the source moon energy. Zhao Fu did not disturb her and sat down cross-legged on the other side, and started to absorb the source moon energy. Chapter 2898. The bloodlines of the ancient kings that had been hibernating were beginning to awaken. The Lord's army conquers the world, the war of the crown princes, has been signed and can be rewarded. Currently typing, please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 2899. Book 1. 340. Zhao Fu quickly finished absorbing the fourth moon's source moon energy, and his body gave off an even more powerful moon energy. The fourth star in his body became a fourth moon, and Zhao Fu's body became even more blurry, and he was one step closer to the innate moon constitution. After absorbing the fourth moon's source moon energy, Zhao Fu arrived at the fifth moon. The fifth moon was quite different from the previous moons. It was mainly made of bamboo, and it was a type of jade bamboo. Looking across, there were large bamboo forests looking quite spectacular. The moon palace was located deep within a bamboo forest. Zhao Fu arrived in front of the moon palace, and the doors were tightly shut. Zhao Fu could only call out the fifth moon immortal's name from outside. Red Moonridge smiled as she walked out and said, You're here. Zhao Fu smiled and nodded. Red Moonridge smiled as she said, I just walked around the moon palace and found that most of the things here are not interesting to me. Let's go and absorb the source moon energy together. Zhao Fu felt that the fifth moon was quite different from the previous moons, so he asked curiously, What's in the fifth moon? Red Moonridge replied, It's all about the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Zhao Fu thought about it and said, The original fifth moon immortal might have been a simple and elegant person. Zhao Fu was not very interested in these things, so he smiled and said, Let's go. The two of them arrived at the palace. There was also a moon stone statue there, and it depicted a graceful figure. She was dressed in a palace dress and held a book in her hand. She gave off a scholarly air, and she was the original fifth moon immortal. Red Moonridge opened the door to the moon energy space and the two of them entered. The scene inside was the same as the other spaces. Zhao Fu and Red Moonridge sat cross-legged under the ball of light and started to absorb the fifth moon's source moon energy. Endless source moon energy floated down from the ball of light and spun into Zhao Fu's body. The fifth star in Zhao Fu's body quickly absorbed the fifth moon's source moon energy, and a powerful aura spread out. As Zhao Fu continuously absorbed, the moon energy that he gave off became more and more terrifying. The Red Moon Ridge opened its eyes and looked at Zhao Fu with a solemn expression. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the fifth star within Zhao Fu's body gave off countless rays of intense moonlight, and Zhao Fu's body gave off an incredibly terrifying wave of moon energy. The light gradually dissipated and the fifth star became a moon that was as big as a fist. A massive wave of moonlight energy spread out, and Zhao Fu's body was filled with this energy, once again becoming an image of moonlight. Now, this illusory figure no longer had the shape of a person, and it was an irregular illusory figure that gave off an incredibly powerful wave of moon energy. Crimson Moon Ridge revealed an astonished expression. She understood that Zhao Fu was just one step away from obtaining the moon source physique. The irregular orb of light turned back into a human form, and Zhao Fu opened his eyes. His body became corporeal, and Zhao Fu felt that the moon power in his body had reached a limit, and his quality was about to change. Zhao Fu smiled and said, "I'm going to the sixth moon." The Red Moon Ridge smiled and said, "I'm going as well." Zhao Fu asked curiously, "Aren't you going to absorb the moon source physique?" The Red Moon Ridge smiled and said, "I'll absorb it later. I want to personally see you obtain the innate moon source physique. I'm also quite curious about what it looks like." Zhao Fu smiled and said, "Let's go together then." The Red Moon Ridge nodded. The two of them went to the sixth moon, and the scene was the same as the previous moons. They walked to the sixth moon's moon palace. What surprised Zhao Fu was that the sixth moon palace already had 6 women wearing white palace dresses and giving off otherworldly auras, making them look like celestial fairies. Seeing Zhao Fu and the Red Moon Ridge arrive, the woman in the lead smiled and bowed as she said, "Sir, our master ordered us to wait for you here." Zhao Fu nodded and asked, "And you are?" The woman smiled as she replied, "The 6 of us are acquired moon spirits created by the 6th moon immortal, and we are responsible for managing the 6th moon palace. You can call us Yue." Zhao Fu smiled as he asked, "Yu Qinxian, what are you doing now?" Yue replied, "Master is fusing with the 6th moon's moon source physique." Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile as he said, "Then take me to see him." Yue nodded. Following this, Zhao Fu followed Yue and the other women into the moon palace. They first came to a large hall, where there was a statue of a woman with an alluring figure and a neutral face wearing a palace dress. She was the original 6th moon immortal. Behind the statue was a door of light, and everyone walked through it and came to the space of moon source physique. Yu Qinxian was sitting cross-legged under the orb of light with her eyes closed, absorbing moon source physique. Everyone came closer. Yu Qinxian opened her eyes and looked at the Red Moon Ridge strangely as she said, "Why are you here? Shouldn't you be focusing on absorbing moon source physique?" The Red Moon Ridge smiled as she said, "He's about to obtain the innate moon source physique, so I came to take a look out of curiosity." Yu Qinxian looked at Zhao Fu in shock and said, "So fast?" Zhao Fu smiled and nodded. The Yue women also looked at Zhao Fu in shock. They had only seen the original moon immortal with an innate moon constitution and had never seen anyone else with an innate moon constitution. Yue could not help but ask, "Can you really have an innate moon constitution?" Zhao Fu smiled as he said, You'll be able to see for yourselves soon. The UE women smiled and nodded. If you can obtain an innate moon constitution, you'll definitely be able to become an existence like the original moon immortal. We've never seen anyone do that before. Zhao Fu smiled as he walked towards the orb of light. Yu Qinxian got up from the ground, allowing Zhao Fu to absorb the sixth source of moon energy and obtain an innate moon constitution. Zhao Fu walked under the orb of light and sat cross-legged on the ground. He closed his eyes and started to absorb moon source physique. Yue asked curiously, Master, who is he? How can he have an innate moon constitution? Yu Qinxian replied, I'm not too sure about his identity. His origins are quite mysterious. The 12 moon immortals ascended to the moon with his help, or else we might not have been able to fly up. The UE women looked quite shocked. He's that powerful? Yu Qinxian nodded seriously. Only he can have an innate moon constitution. None of us have that ability. The UE women looked at Zhao Fu curiously, wanting to know about Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu closed his eyes and his body gave off a suction force, causing traces of moon source physique to continuously descend and flow into Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu's sixth star absorbed moon source physique and gave off a powerful aura. As Zhao Fu continuously absorbed moon source physique, the moon source physique that Zhao Fu gave off became more and more powerful, causing Yu Qinxian and the others to feel pressure and feel quite shocked. Yu Qinxian said seriously, he's about to fuse with the sixth moon source physique. Chapter 2900. Book 1, Chapter 341. Boom. A massive explosion sounded out as the sixth star within Zhao Fu's body gave off intense moonlight. Following this, the light gradually dissipated as a fist-sized moon appeared, and a boundless wave of moonlight spread out. Zhao Fu's body started to become illusory, turning into an illusory image formed from moonlight. Following this, the illusory image slowly turned into an orb of light that gave off boundless moonlight. The women watched as the orb of light continuously changed, and the aura it gave off became more and more powerful. After reaching a limit, it stopped and seemed to be frozen in the air. The 6 moons within Zhao Fu's body simultaneously exploded out with massive amounts of moonlight power. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out as the orb of light exploded out with terrifying power, forming a shockwave that instantly spread out. Yu Qinxian and the other women were forced back a few steps by this power. Under this extremely terrifying moonlight power, they felt as if they had fallen into icy water, and their bodies and souls could not help but tremble as they felt an intense fear. The moon immortals of the other moons sensed this shocking ripple and woke up from their cultivation. They looked at the 6th moon and stopped fusing with their essence moon power, and they all flew towards the 6th moon. Boom! A shocking explosion once again sounded out as the orb of light once again exploded out with even more terrifying moonlight power, forming a terrifying shockwave that instantly spread out. This time, Yu Qinxian and the other women were prepared and unleashed defensive barriers to block this power, so they were not forced back like before. The women looked at the orb of light seriously. They could sense that this was not the end, and that the orb of light was still giving birth to even more terrifying power. Boom! Just as they had expected, another massive explosion sounded out as another wave of even more terrifying moonlight power exploded out, forming a massive shockwave that spread out. Even though Yu Qinxian and the other women unleashed defensive barriers, they were still forced back a step by that power. By now, the other moon immortals had arrived, and looking at the orb of light, they asked, "What's going on?" Yu Qinxian explained, "He became like this after absorbing the 6th moon's essence moon power." Yu Xianzi said in surprise, "Just by absorbing 6 months' worth of moon essence energy, you will be able to obtain an innate moon constitution. This is much faster than I expected." Yu Yao said, "This power is truly terrifying. We can clearly sense it in the other moons." The Red Moon Ridge chuckled and said, "When he fused with the origin moon power of the 5th month, I felt that he was about to break through, so I followed him out of curiosity. Yu Qianxian said seriously, even as moon immortals, we have never seen an innate moon constitution before, nor do we know what it looks like. Yu Shumin replied with a smile, that is one of the strongest physiques in the primal chaos world. It possesses unimaginable power. The Moon Maiden asked, what do we do now? Yu Xianzi replied with a smile, we can only watch. We can't help much. Boom. A shocking explosion once again sounded out as the irregular orb of light once again exploded out with terrifying power. It gave off boundless moonlight and turned into a ray of light that shot into the sky. The women immediately went outside and saw that Zhao Fu had left the sixth moon and was hovering in the air, giving off boundless moonlight. The irregular orb of light once again gave off a massive suction force, and the 6 moons gave off boundless white aura that flowed towards the irregular orb of light. Those 6 moons were the moons that Zhao Fu had absorbed before. The white aura flowed into the irregular orb of light like an ocean, and the power that the irregular orb of light gave off became more and more terrifying. It formed a massive might, and the women felt as if a mountain was weighing down on their bodies. The women looked at the irregular orb of light seriously. The ripples that it caused exceeded anything they had expected, making them feel incredibly shocked. The irregular orb of light instantly absorbed all of the white aura, as if it had instantly sucked dry a white ocean. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out as the irregular orb of light gave off heaven-toppling moon power and gradually formed a circle. Its incorporeal body became corporeal and continuously grew until it was 100,000 meters wide and looked like a moon. The moon immortals looked at the air in shock. They had never thought that the innate moon constitution would turn into a real moon, and their hearts received a massive blow. Even though that moon was not as big as the other moons, it gave off a massive might that could stop space and time. It was as if it was a part of the heavens and earth, and it was not something that anyone could resist. Boom, 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 boom. 6 massive explosions sounded out as the 6 moons seemed to be stimulated by that moon and gave off even more intense moonlight. The people in the outer world looked at the night sky curiously. They felt that the 6 moons had become even brighter than before. What was going on? However, the countless experts felt quite startled. They could sense the shocking changes happening to the 6 moons. For the 6 moons to undergo such shocking changes, something big must have happened that was related to the moons, and it was most likely related to the 12 moons. They had heard that the 12 moons immortals had ascended to the moon. The women on the 6th moon looked at the moon, their minds completely blank. They did not know what to do and could only stand there and stare. At that moment, the massive moon slowly shrank and turned back into Zhao Fu's body, and only then did everyone come back to their senses. Zhao Fu sensed the powerful moon power within his body and looked quite delighted. His constitution had also become much stronger. Yu Xianzi smiled as she said, "Hurry up and come down, let us have a look." Zhao Fu lightly laughed and flew to the surface of the 6th moon. The women gathered around Zhao Fu and started to examine Zhao Fu's body. They all looked quite shocked. The innate moon constitution was incredibly powerful. Now, as long as Zhao Fu wanted to, Zhao Fu could go to any world and become a real moon. The Moon Holy Daughter cried out in admiration, "This innate moon constitution is too powerful. I don't believe that someone with such a constitution would not become one of the first moon immortals. Moreover, if it's impossible to ascend to the moon, with this constitution, one can ascend to the moon at any time without facing any obstructions." Yu Yao smiled as she said, "This is the first time I've seen the innate moon constitution, and I feel quite amazed. As expected from the constitution of the first moon immortals." Red Moon Ridge said with some pity, "It's a pity that he's not a woman. It would be great if he was a woman. He would be a moon immortal, and this would greatly affect the 12 moons." Putting aside everything else, Just fate alone would bring boundless fate to the 12 moons, allowing them to rise again. Chapter 2901. But now, the results of this book are already like this. The royalties from Qidyan are only 8 or 900 yuan. Because I was banned before, I don't get 600 yuan for full attendance. But I still insist on updating 2 chapters a day, because I don't want this book to go to waste. The new book is my hope now, and I sincerely hope that everyone can continue to support it. I also thank everyone who has already supported me. I also promise that I will try my best to continue writing this book, and I won't cut it. Everyone, please rest assured about this. The new title of the book is The Crown Prince's War. Introduction. The heavenly god's barrier protecting the human world has been broken, and countless evil beasts have entered the human world, causing corpses to litter the land, blood to flow like rivers, and the people to be plunged into misery and suffering. The ancient bloodlines of the various kings have begun to awaken. Finally, because I'm too anxious, I've affected everyone's reading experience. I apologize first. The Lord's weapon conquers the world is a few psychological words. Currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 2902. Book 1. Zhao Fu was stunned. Yu Xianzi lightly laughed as she said, "Even if he's not a woman, the 12 moons will definitely rise again with him. With his help, the 12 of us became half celestials and ascended to the moon." Yu Shumin smiled as she said, "You're right." Yu Shumin suddenly thought of something and said, "He's only fused with 6 moons essence moon energy and has not fused with another 6 moons essence moon energy. I wonder what he'll do after fusing with all of the moon energy." Yu Xianzi smiled as she said, "I think he'll have a shocking performance." Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "I'm not too sure, we'll only know after fusing. Let's go to the 7th moon now." The women smiled and nodded. In the 7th moon, the plants here were quite different. There were large numbers of white flowers, which looked quite beautiful and majestic. The moon palace was within a sea of flowers. The statue in the moon palace was of a voluptuous and beautiful woman with flowers. After absorbing the 7th moon's moon energy, the 7th star within his body became the 7th moon, and Zhao Fu went to the 8th star. The women followed behind Zhao Fu. The 8th moon's scene was the same as before, and there was nothing special about it. They came to the moon palace of the 8th moon, and there was a statue of a woman with a bewitching figure and an alluring aura. She was most likely the original 8th moon immortal. Zhao Fu came to the moon energy space and sat cross-legged on the ground as he started to absorb the 8th moon's essence moon energy. As Zhao Fu continuously absorbed the essence moon energy, the aura that Zhao Fu gave off became more and more powerful. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the 8th star within Zhao Fu's body gave off countless rays of intense moonlight. In the end, it became a fist-sized moon and gave off boundless moon energy. Yu Xianzi sensed the power that Zhao Fu gave off and said, as expected, he can still improve. Now that his power has gone through great changes, I'm looking forward to the moment he fuses with all of the moon energy. There will definitely be shocking result. The women nodded in agreement. Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile as he got up from the ground and headed to the 9th moon. There were many large trees growing on the 9th moon. Each tree was dozens of meters tall, and the tallest one was a few thousand meters tall. It was a white jade tree that looked sparkling and translucent. It was quite beautiful, and it seemed like a world of trees. The moon palace was located on a plateau, and Zhao Fu and the girls flew into it. There was a statue in the palace that depicted a woman with a graceful figure and canine teeth. She was the original 9th moon immortal. Arriving at the source space, Zhao Fu continued to sit cross-legged under the ball of light, absorbing the 9th moon's source moon energy. Boom! An explosion sounded out as the ninth moon within Zhao Fu's body gave off an intense light. After the light dissipated, a fist-sized moon appeared, giving off faint moonlight. The moon power that Zhao Fu's body gave off was even more terrifying. They left the ninth moon and arrived at the 10th moon. The 10th moon was a stark contrast to the ninth moon. There were not many trees here, and it was a boundless grassland that was 1 meter tall. It was also white, and when the wind blew, it looked like waves, making it look quite majestic. After coming to the Moon Palace, the 10th moon immortal statue was a woman with a seductive figure and a ponytail. After absorbing the 10th moon's source moon energy, Zhao Fu and the others flew to the 11th moon. The 11th moon was just like the other moons, but what surprised Zhao Fu and the others was that there were many small animals here, such as cats, birds, squirrels, lambs, puppies, ducklings, and so on. The Moon Palace was near a large mountain, and the moon immortal statue in the palace was a very cute woman. After coming to the source space, there were now 11 moons, and Zhao Fu was only one away from obtaining all of the source moon energy. The women could not help but feel both excited and nervous. Zhao Fu sat cross-legged under the orb of light and continued to absorb source moon energy. Traces of source moon energy spiraled down and entered Zhao Fu's body. The 11th star within Zhao Fu's body continued to absorb this trace of source moon energy, and it gave off a powerful aura. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the 11th star gave off boundless moonlight. A moon that was as big as a fist appeared, and a terrifying wave of moon energy spread out from Zhao Fu's body, sweeping out like a flood. The moon immortals nearby felt as if they had fallen into water, and they felt as if they were suffocating. Zhao Fu slowly opened his eyes and stood up from the ground as he smiled and said, "Let's head to the final star." Now there was only one moon left. If he could fuse with it, Zhao Fu would be able to fuse with all of the moon energy. Sensing the changes in his body, Zhao Fu could not help but feel quite impatient. The women smiled and nodded. They could not wait any longer, and they wanted to see Zhao Fu fuse with all of the moon energy. In the final month, there was a large lake here. The lake was as calm as a mirror, and it was white. It looked like massive mirrors on the ground, and it looked quite strange. Zhao Fu and the others came to the Moon Palace, which was at the center of a massive lake. The statue in the palace was 3 meters tall and was made of jade. It was a beautiful woman with a gentle aura, and she wore a white dress. After walking into the source space, Zhao Fu smiled and said, "I'm going to fuse with the final type of moon energy." The women smiled and nodded. Zhao Fu walked up and sat cross-legged under the orb of light. He lightly breathed out, and his expression became serious. This was absorbing the final source moon energy, and Zhao Fu took it quite seriously. Zhao Fu closed his eyes and his body gave off an attractive force. The orb of light above him sent down traces of source moon energy, which spun and entered Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu's body gave off faint moonlight and a powerful wave of moon energy. Zhao Fu's final round star absorbed the powerful wave of source moon energy and gave off a powerful aura. The women looked at Zhao Fu in anticipation and did not say anything. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the final round star within Zhao Fu's body gave off blinding moonlight. Following this, the moonlight gradually spread out and a fist-sized moon appeared within Zhao Fu's body, and Zhao Fu's body gave off a massive wave of moon energy. Following this, the massive wave of moon energy that Zhao Fu's body gave off slowly dissipated, and Zhao Fu sat there like an ordinary person and did not give off any power. The women did not say anything and watched on in concern. They understood that this was not the end, or rather, this was just the beginning. By now, the 12 round stars within Zhao Fu's body had become 12 moons, giving off faint moonlight. The two sides were connected and harmonious. In the end, they became one. Apex. Chapter 2903. Book 1. Chapter 343. Immortal Boom. A massive explosion sounded out as an unimaginably terrifying and indescribable wave of moon power exploded out, instantly covering the entire world. Under this wave of moon power, the moon immortals' faces became pale and beads of sweat appeared on their bodies. Their bodies and minds were greatly impacted. The moon power that Zhao Fu possessed was more than 100 times more powerful than theirs, and now, the power that Zhao Fu gave off was even more terrifying, making it difficult for their bodies and minds to endure. Perhaps other half-celestials would not be affected as much, but they were moon immortals. Zhao Fu's body gave off countless rays of moonlight, which became brighter and brighter, making it difficult for them to see clearly. Swish! Zhao Fu's body turned into a massive white ray of light, and it gave off a massive aura as it shot into the sky. The moon immortals immediately went outside, and they saw that the massive white ray of light had already shot out of the 12th moon's range. It came to a spacious, empty space, and it turned into a white orb of light that gave off blinding light. Boom! Another massive explosion sounded out as the white orb of light released a massive wave of moon power, which spread out like a white dome. Boom! 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 12 explosions sounded out at the same time, ringing out in all directions. The 12 massive moons trembled and gave off countless rays of moonlight. They also gave off a world-shaking aura. The moon immortals stared at the scene before them in shock. Their hearts could not help but race. At that moment 12 illusory figures flew out from the 12 moons. The 12 figures all had different appearances and auras, but they were all dressed in white palace dresses and had extremely beautiful faces. They gave off a celestial air. They were the original 12 moon immortals. The 12 moon immortal illusory figures did not seem to be very fast, but their movements were graceful and light. They flew towards the white orb of light and fused into it. Boom! The orb of light gave off a piercing white light, and an incredibly muffled sound rang out, as if the sky was about to collapse. All of the creatures on the 12 moons felt an unprecedented pressure, and their bodies seemed to be frozen to the spot. They looked at the sky in shock. The blinding light slowly spread out, and an incredibly vast moon appeared in the sky. It was even bigger than the other 12 moons, and it gave off a faint silver-white moonlight as well as an incredibly vast and heavy aura. The night sky of the chaotic world immediately became brighter. A young man sitting at the front of the courtyard looked at the sky in shock. He nudged his father, who was doing something, and said, "Dad, look at the sky." His father was a big man with a full beard. He said impatiently, "What's there to see in the sky? Don't disturb me." The youth continued, "No, father, quickly look up at the sky." The burly man was a little angry. He raised his head to look at the sky, and his expression slowly became one of astonishment. One of the female attendants walked out of the room and felt that it was exceptionally bright today. She looked at the sky curiously and immediately ran back into the room, calling out, Miss, hurry and come out." A woman with a classical temperament walked out of the room helplessly. "What happened? Why are you making such a fuss?" The maid excitedly pointed at the sky. The classical woman raised her head in puzzlement and looked at the sky. Her expression slowly turned into one of astonishment. Next to a large tree, a refined young man was about to lie down and sleep. Seeing that the surroundings had suddenly brightened, he looked up strangely and looked at the sky with a shocked expression. He pushed a round-faced young man beside him and shouted, "Wake up!" The round-faced young man woke up in a daze and said, "What happened?" The refined young man said, "Look at the sky." The round-faced young man nodded and looked up at the sky, and his expression gradually became one of astonishment. At that moment, countless people looked at the sky in shock. They had never thought that such a thing would happen, and their minds went blank. There were 13 moons in the sky, and one of them was exceptionally big. Some people rubbed their eyes in disbelief and asked the people beside them, "Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Why do I see 13 moons in the sky? Aren't there only 12 moons?" The person beside them said in shock, "Are your eyes playing tricks on you? There are 13 moons in the sky. I see it too." That person was given a big fright and said, "Is this true?" The person beside him vigorously nodded. That person looked at the sky and said in shock, "But why is there an extra moon? This moon is even bigger than the others. What happened?" The person beside him said in a trembling voice, "I don't know either." Within the primal chaos world, countless experts looked up at the sky and looked quite shocked. They had never thought that such a thing would happen. "Ha, I've lived for a long time, but this is the first time I've seen a moon in the sky. I'm sure this is the first time for many people. It's not just me. This is the first time in the primal chaos world's history that 13 moons have appeared. I'm quite curious. What is that 13th moon? Not only is it bigger than the others, but the moonlight it gives off is also brighter. I'm not sure, but this definitely has to do with the 12 moons. They had just ascended to the moon, and yet such a thing happened. Who would have thought that the 12 moons' ascension would cause such a big change? I felt that something big was going to happen, but I underestimated the 12 moons. I underestimated the 12 moons too much. At first, I didn't pay much attention to this, but the 12 moons caused such a big abnormal sign. I'm sure this has shaken the primal chaos world, and everyone knows that there is an extra moon in the sky. Looks like the 12 moons are going to be revived. In the future, they will definitely become the #1 merchant group in the primal chaos world, and their faction will become even more terrifying. That's right. Back then, the 12 moons had the original 12 moons, and no one dared to offend them. After all, they were one of the strongest factions back then. I think it's time to properly deal with the relationship between our faction and the 12 moons faction. I don't know where the 12 moons got their luck from. Not only did they become half immortals, they were also able to ascend to the moon. Now, they have even created a 13th moon. I seem to have heard some news that all of this is related to a person. As for that person, he is very mysterious. I don't know where he came from. Is this true or false? That person has such a great background? I want to know who he is. Ha ha ha, I want to know as well. I want to bring him to my faction and have him help my faction revive. That person is indeed shocking. Most importantly, we don't know his true identity. However, just thinking about it, he must be very terrifying. Chapter 2904. Book 1, Chapter 344. Heavenly Tao. The 12 moons immortals and the others looked at the massive moon in shock. This was a massive abnormal sign caused by absorbing all of the source moon energy. After condensing 12 types of source moon energy, it would naturally be more powerful than any other moon's power. However, this was just an abnormal sign. Zhao Fu was not really bigger than the other moons, nor did it have the effects of a real moon. The moonlight started to shrink and the massive source of moon energy slowly manifested before turning into Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu stood in the air and wore a white cloak, revealing his face that was as white as jade. His body seemed to be covered by a hazy moonlight, and the 12 moons formed a circle behind Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's body gave off a massive celestial spiritual energy, and his aura was gentle, pure, ethereal, just like the moon immortal from back then. Looking at Zhao Fu's current appearance, everyone could not help but look shocked. Before, when Zhao Fu had the innate moon constitution, everyone felt that Zhao Fu was like the moon immortal from back then. However, they now felt that Zhao Fu was the innate moon immortal. Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile and flew down from the air, landing in front of the women. Everyone could not help but take a few steps back because the moon energy that Zhao Fu gave off made them feel an immense pressure. They did not even dare to look up at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu looked quite startled and retracted all of his moon energy. The 12 moons behind him disappeared and Zhao Fu returned to his normal appearance. Only then did everyone relax. Zhao Fu smiled as he asked, "How is it?" "This is the result of fusing with the 12 moons." Yu Xianzi smiled as she said, "You're much more powerful than we thought." Yu Xianzi said enviously, "With such a powerful 12 moons constitution, we don't even have the right to compare to you. We're moon immortals." Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he said, "Perhaps you'll be able to obtain it in the future." Yu Shumin said with a smile, "Right now, you are the most important person in our 12 moons. If you stay here, only beauties can hurt you. I think you should stay here and cultivate. I think your cultivation will soon surpass ours." Hong Yueling smiled and said, "That's right. We can cultivate here together, or we can continue our dual cultivation. Let's see how your 12 innate moon constitution affects us." Yu Dancing Star said with a happy smile, "Yes, I agree. This is also the most suitable place for us to cultivate. I don't think there is another place like this. We also have a place to go." Zhao Fu said awkwardly, "I think I'll be leaving soon." The girls were taken aback. Moon Saintess asked curiously, "Where are you going? Isn't it better to stay here?" Zhao Fu replied, "I still have my own matters to settle. I can't stay in the 12 months palace." Yu Dancing Star looked straight into Zhao Fu's eyes. "What do you think is important?" Zhao Fu said apologetically, "I can't tell you." Yu Xianzi asked, "Then are you not willing to tell us your true identity?" Zhao Fu thought about it and wondered if he could use his identity as the desolate ancient dragon clan's young master to hide it. However, he felt that there was no need and said, "Perhaps you will find out in the future." Moon Saintess said angrily, "You're not willing to tell us even now." Yu Xuaning said with a trace of displeasure, "If you were someone else, we would definitely capture you and obtain all information about you by hook or by crook." Yu Qinxian nodded and said, "That's right, no man has ever treated us like this." Yu Dancing Star stood up and said, "Everyone, don't be like this. Think about how much he has done for us. If he doesn't want to tell us, he definitely has his own difficulties." Yu Xianzi looked at Zhao Fu seriously and said, "I'll ask you a question." Zhao Fu said, "What is it?" Yu Xianzi said, "Will you harm our 12 moons and do something to harm us?" Zhao Fu smiled and said, "I can promise you that I won't do such things." Yu Xianzi smiled and said, "We won't fuss about such things. You can tell us when you want to tell us." Red Moon Ridge asked, "When are you leaving?" Zhao Fu smiled and replied, "I should be leaving soon." Moon Saintess said in surprise, "So soon?" Zhao Fu smiled and nodded. Now that Zhao Fu had achieved his goal for coming to the 12 moons, it was time for him to leave. Red Moon Ridge said flirtatiously, "I don't care, you have to stay for a few days to compensate us. Otherwise, we won't let you leave." Zhao Fu smiled and said, "All right." After interacting with the Moon Immortals for a few days, Zhao Fu returned to the surface of the primal chaos world and found that the entire world knew about the 12 moons. Countless people were passionately discussing this because a moon had appeared in the sky. This matter was simply too shocking, but it was a pity that they did not know that this was related to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu first returned to the dragon region. The various dragon race leaders smiled as they looked at Zhao Fu. They knew that this matter that had shaken the primal chaos world had been caused by their young master. Zhao Fu had once again refreshed their understanding of the world. Their young master was simply too amazing. The serious-looking elder asked in concern, "Young master, tell us about what happened in the 12 moons. We're actually quite curious. What's going on with those 13 moons?" Zhao Fu nodded and gave a simple explanation. When the various dragon race leaders found out that Zhao Fu had fused with 12 types of moon source power and had 12 innate moon bodies, and that the 13th moon was Zhao Fu, they were so shocked that their jaws almost hit the ground. This matter was far more shocking than they had expected. The purple-haired elder smiled as he said, "Young master, back when you went to the 12 moons, I didn't believe you at all. I apologize. I truly revere you too much. If only I had 1% of what you are in the past. The blue-clothed elder chuckled as he said, Right now, those people still do not know that this matter was caused by our young master. If they knew, they would definitely shake the world. However, I think it's best to hide it. Our young master has been in the limelight recently. The black-clothed elder nodded as he said, I agree with this. Our young master has already attracted countless gazes, so it's best to be careful and not let anything happen to him. The silver-horned elder said, I think we can now call our young master the son of primal chaos. There is no one in the primal chaos world who can compare to our young master. The purple-haired elder smiled as he said, I agree with this. Our young master is the son of primal chaos. The serious-looking elder smiled as he said, Everyone, calm down. We should listen to our young master. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, I don't have much to say. I came back to prepare to go to the land of extreme yang, but I also came to visit everyone. The purple-haired elder said in surprise, You're going to the land of extreme yang so soon. Chapter 2905. Book 1. 345. Zhao Fu smiled and nodded. The outer world has 2 innate source energies, and I've already obtained one. I can't wait to obtain the other one. It's one of the keys to awakening the supreme primal chaos emperor star. The silver-horned elder thought about it and said, That place is even more dangerous than December. I think it's best for young master to settle down. Young master is invincible now. The chubby elder said, With young master's talent, even in the celestial world, you will be able to shake everything. I'm worried that something will happen to young master. Zhao Fu said firmly, Don't worry too much. I've always been like this. I've already made up my mind to obtain the other innate source energy. The dignified-looking elder said, Since young master has made his decision, we won't ask for much. The black-clothed old man smiled and said, Young master, what do you want? Just tell us and we'll do it right away. With your talent, we feel like we owe you something for not doing anything to you. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, I'll call you if I need anything. The black-clothed elder laughed as he said, Hearing young master say that, I feel at ease. Zhao Fu said, I still have other things to do, so I'll be leaving first. The various chiefs smiled and nodded. Following this, Zhao Fu returned to the Dragon Palace. Ericina said bitterly, You still know to come back. Why didn't you just stay outside? You even left us here. Zhao Fu awkwardly smiled as he said, I didn't come back after taking care of things. Ericina lightly harumphed. Feng Xinsha said, We also have something to ask you. Zhao Fu smiled as he asked, What is it? Feng Xinsha said, When will we return to the Heaven Awaken world? We've been out for a long time. Zhao Fu thought about it and said, Qin is in the Heaven Awaken world. That's my home and where I live. I naturally want to go there. I'm getting closer and closer to the Supreme Emperor Star, and I'll be able to awaken soon. When that time comes, we'll immediately return. Yu Xinsha smiled and nodded. Zhao Fu, Yu Xinsha, and Ericina were all people from the Heaven Awaken world and did not have much of a sense of belonging in the outer world, so they still thought about the Heaven Awaken world. Ericina blushed and said, Come here. Hearing this, Zhao Fu understood and walked over. Afterwards, Zhao Fu hugged Ericina and Feng Xinsha and said, I'm going to the land of extreme yang to obtain another innate source energy. Feng Xinsha smiled as she said, All right, hurry up and go. That way we can quickly return to the Heaven Awaken world. Ericina lightly nodded. I also miss the people and things there. You need to quickly awaken the outer world's Supreme Emperor Star. Zhao Fu said with a smile, I know. The next day, Zhao Fu made some preparations and immediately headed to the land of extreme yang. The 8 sun gods were godly spirits born from the 8 suns, and they had personally established the 8 sun god temples. They were the most worshipped godly spirits back then. However, after the ancient godly war, The 8 sun gods had disappeared, and the 8 sun god temples had declined. Now, only the land of extreme yang had the 8 sun god temples. If Zhao Fu wanted to obtain innate sun energy, he would have to ascend to the sun. The first step was to go to the land of extreme yang. To Zhao Fu, that was the only place where he could ascend to the sun. The sun rose in the east, and the land of extreme yang was in the east of the outer world, while the 12 moons were in the west. Perhaps because the sun and moon opposed each other, the relationship between the 12 moons and the 8 sun god temples had been quite cold, but there had not been any major conflict. Zhao Fu knew that going to the land of extreme yang with his innate moon energy would bring him many disadvantages, so Zhao Fu had to pay attention to this. Right now, Zhao Fu did not know what the situation was like in the land of extreme yang, nor did he know what the 8 sun god temples were like. It was possible that Zhao Fu would not be able to ascend to the sun. Firstly, the 8 sun god temples had declined, and there were not many experts that could help him. Secondly, ascending to the sun was more difficult than ascending to the moon. These were things that could only be known after reaching the land of extreme yang. After walking for about 10 days, Zhao Fu arrived at the land of extreme yang. Because of the special geography of the land of extreme yang, it could gather a large amount of sunlight. The sunlight here was several times that of other places, and the sunlight was somewhat dazzling. The ground here was also a kind of purplish-red sand, and there were fewer plants. It looked desolate, and the weather was also very hot. If a person stayed here for a while, they would feel like they would be roasted. With Zhao Fu's constitution, he did not have to worry about this. He walked into the land of extreme yang and walked to the side to see if he could find any traces of other people. A while later, Zhao Fu saw a few thin and small children who only had bandages around their waist. They were holding clubs as they chased after a rabbit-like creature. It was as big as a dog and was completely black and had spikes on its body. It was not very fast, but it was quite fast for the children. Zhao Fu stretched out a hand and grabbed, and a formless energy grabbed the rabbit-like creature. Zhao Fu smiled as he walked over. The children looked at Zhao Fu warily. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "I won't harm you, I just want to ask you some things. If you can tell me, I'll give it to you." One of the children muttered, "That was our prey." The older child gestured to the other child not to speak and said, "I'll tell you first, we don't welcome outsiders here." Hearing this, Zhao Fu smiled and nodded as he placed the rabbit in front of the children and said, "I'll give this rabbit to you." The children happily leapt over and killed the rabbit in a few hits. One of the children happily called out, "This is great, we'll have meat to eat today." The older child immediately had a good impression of Zhao Fu and said, "What do you want to ask? We're going back soon." Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "First question, who are you?" The older child replied, "We're from the Sun Clan and came from a small village nearby." Zhao Fu then asked, "Where is the 8 Sun Temple?" The older child asked, "Why are you looking for the temple?" Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "I'm curious and want to see." The older child reminded him, "I advise you not to go. If you go there, you'll be expelled from the land of extreme yang by the divine emissary, and your life might be in danger." Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "I know. You just need to tell me where the temple is. If you tell me, I'll give these to you." Zhao Fu took out 10 or so azure-colored advanced spirit fruit. These children most likely had never seen these things before, and to them, they were incredibly rare and precious. Chapter 2906. Book 1, Chapter 346. Book 1. The children looked at the spirit fruits and drooled. The older child smiled and said, "In actuality, we don't know where the temple is, but we have to give some resources to the temple every month. You can follow the god messengers to the temple." Zhao Fu smiled and nodded. He handed the spirit fruits to the children. The children took the spirit fruits and happily ate them, causing juice to splash everywhere. It was as if they had never eaten such delicious food before. Zhao Fu smiled and said, "Where is your village? If you tell me, I'll give you many good things." The older child hesitated. Zhao Fu smiled and said, "If I was a human, I would have captured you and interrogated you instead of treating you like this. I can also promise that I won't harm your village." Hearing this, the older child nodded and pointed. "Then I'll tell you, our village is in that direction." Zhao Fu laughed and waved his hand, giving them a pile of spirit fruit. To Zhao Fu, these things were just a pile of snacks and were not very useful. The children were overjoyed and picked up the spirit fruits on the ground. Following this, Zhao Fu disappeared. Seeing Zhao Fu disappear, a child said in surprise, "I ate these fruits. My body feels so good, and my strength seems to have increased by a lot." Another child said, "I don't think these fruits are ordinary, that adult's identity must be quite amazing." A child nodded and said in agreement, "We're quite lucky to have met such a prestigious adult." Another child said, "He asked where our village was. Did he go to our village?" The older child said, "Don't worry about this for now, let's transport these things back." The children did not think too much and happily picked up the spirit fruits on the ground. They returned to a village on barren land. It was surrounded by simple fences, and the houses were quite old. Some skinny adults looked at the things that the children had brought back. Some of them were things that they had never seen before, and they gave off spirit light. They looked quite shocked and immediately walked over. In this lively atmosphere, an old man with a white beard walked out and asked curiously, "Where did these things come from?" The children told them about their encounter with Zhao Fu. Hearing these words, the adults' expressions became serious, and some of them angrily yelled, "Don't you know that the Sun Clan can't interact with outsiders?" The children stood there in fear, not daring to make a sound. The white-haired old man sighed, "Don't blame them for this. That person is extremely powerful. If he really wanted to harm us, our village wouldn't be able to escape." Someone asked, "Chief, what should we do now?" The white-haired old man said, "Put these things away. These are all high-grade spirit fruits, which are quite beneficial to us. As for other matters, we don't have to worry about them. We don't have the ability to control them. Everything will be the same as usual." Everyone nodded. The children also heaved a sigh of relief and revealed happy expressions. These things were things that they had brought back, so they would also obtain quite a bit. The white-haired elder called out to an older child and came to a room. The white-haired elder asked, "What does that person look like? Tell me what he looks like." The older child replied, "He was wearing a black cloak, and I don't know what he looks like. However, I feel that he's quite mysterious and that he's quite gentle. I also feel that he's quite powerful." The white-haired elder nodded and said, "There's nothing else, you can go back now." The older child nodded and turned to leave the room. A few days later, a 6-meter-long lion-like beast with violet fur and a golden orb on its head suddenly charged into the village. Everyone hurriedly took out their weapons and rushed out, their expressions quite grim. The white-haired elder walked out, and seeing this lion, his expression became quite grim. This was a purple sun lion, and its strength was quite terrifying. The purple sun lion roared and swiped with its claws, sending a few people flying. Those people coughed up large mouthfuls of blood and were heavily injured. The others were given a big fright and hurriedly retreated. One of them called out in panic, "Chief, what do we do now?" The white-haired elder's face became pale. If this purple sun lion charged in, they would not be a match for it at all. If they did not run, they would all be killed and eaten by the purple sun lion. Arg! A pained cry sounded out as the purple sun lion leapt forwards in front of the people and bit down, tearing apart a person, causing blood to continuously flow out. The others furiously stabbed at the purple sun lion with their spears, but they could only stab a few inches in and did not deal much damage to the purple sun lion. Instead, they angered the purple sun lion, and it swung its claws a few more times, sending the people around it flying. Some of the people who were sent flying bled and cried out in pain, and some directly fainted. Seeing this, the white-haired elder could only yell, "Everyone, hurry and run!" They had no choice but to sacrifice a portion of the people and try to save as many as they could. Hearing this, everyone hurriedly ran in all directions. The purple sun lion leapt up and pressed a middle-aged man to the ground with a claw, preparing to bite at him. The older child cried out in terror, "Dad!" Hearing the older child's cry, the white-haired elder thought of something and immediately yelled towards the sky, "Sir, save us!" Shing! A sword light descended from the sky and instantly slashed down on the purple sun lion's head. The purple sun lion's head was decapitated and blood spurted out, and the purple sun lion's massive body slowly fell to the ground. The people running around all stopped and looked at this scene in confusion. They did not know what had happened and why the purple sun lion had suddenly died. The white-haired elder looked towards the sky and a figure appeared in the sky. He was wearing a black cloak and gave off a powerful and noble aura, as if he was an emperor. Seeing this scene, everyone knelt down. Zhao Fu slowly descended from the sky. Zhao Fu had been waiting for the god representative to arrive while comprehending his bloodline, and he had not paid much attention to the village. However, since the people here had asked for his help, Zhao Fu did not refuse. It was just a small matter. The white-haired elder had personally seen Zhao Fu and understood how powerful Zhao Fu was. He respectfully called out, "I greet sir." Zhao Fu lightly smiled as he said, "Everyone, rise." Hearing this, everyone got up and looked at Zhao Fu curiously. They understood that it was him who had decapitated the purple sun lion. Chapter 2907. Book 1. Chapter 347. The white-haired old man invited Zhao Fu into the room and asked, "May I know where you come from?" Zhao Fu smiled and said, "You don't need to know. Also, is the land of the extreme sun so barren?" The white-haired old man nodded. Most of the places in the land of extreme yang are desolate areas. Plants and animals are relatively rare, and we sometimes go hungry. Moreover, we have to regularly provide supplies to the temple. Puzzled, Zhao Fu asked, "You still want to provide supplies in this state?" The white-haired old man said, "Yes, if we hand over a certain amount of resources, the people of our village will have to suffer the pain of the scorching sun." Zhao Fu asked again, "Has your temple ever helped you?" The white-haired elder sighed and shook his head. Zhao Fu felt that the temple was a criminal force that exploited the people's wealth and oppressed them. It wasn't a temple that helped the people develop. No wonder the land of extreme yang was defeated. This kind of shrine was simply a malignant tumor. Zhao Fu asked again, "Have you ever thought of leaving this place?" The white-haired old man thought for a moment before replying, "No, we've lived here for generations and are used to it. We also have deep feelings for this place, so we don't want to go to other places to live." Zhao Fu nodded and said seriously, "If I become the master of the hall, I will definitely change everything." The white-haired elder's eyes shined as he said, "Sir, could it be that you're the person who prophesied?" Zhao Fu asked curiously, "What?" The white-haired old man said with some excitement, "A long, long time ago, the 8 sun god envoys left behind a prophecy. One day, a person would appear in the land of extreme yang, and the 8 sun god temple would welcome a great revival, and walk the path of prosperity." Zhao Fu asked curiously, "Tell me more about the prophecy." The white-haired old man nodded with a smile, and began to explain to Zhao Fu. It turned out that a long, long time ago, the 8 sun temple and the land of extreme yang were not like this. At that time, the 8 sun temple was very powerful. Although they would regularly offer some things as tribute, there were no rules on what to offer or the value of the things. Even if they offered a few stones, it was fine. The 8 sun shrine would often help the people of each village. If a village encountered danger, they would immediately send out divine envoys to help the village resist the danger. Even if a village didn't have food, the shrine would donate food for free. At that time, the shrine was the most trusted and respected shrine, mainly managed by 8 powerful sun god envoys. The land of Extreme Yang was not as barren as it was now. Back then, it was also a place with abundant resources. There was no lack of all kinds of spirit herbs and spirit fruits, and there were many kinds of rare animals. However, after a certain major event occurred, the 8 sun god envoys died, and a large amount of spiritual chi was lost in the land of Extreme Yang, resulting in the current situation. Before the 8 sun god emissaries died, they left behind this prophecy. They said that one day, a person would appear and unify the 8 sun shrine. He would lead the sun race to glory and become an existence like the great sun god. Zhao Fu started to think to himself, am I the person who spoke this prophecy? But I don't seem to have any connection to this prophecy. However, I feel that this prophecy is faintly related to me. The white-haired old man said excitedly, Lord, I think you are the person who spoke this prophecy. I believe that you can lead us to prosperity. Zhao Fu smiled and said, What proof do you have? The white-haired old man smiled and shook his head. I believe in my intuition. Zhao Fu smiled and did not continue on this topic. Instead, he asked, What's the situation with the shrine now? Why do they reject outsiders? The white-haired old man said, I'm not too sure about the shrine situation. The reason they reject outsiders is because the major event that changed the shrine was caused by an outsider. It was he who caused the land of Extreme Yang to become like this, and it was he who caused the death of the 8 sun god emissaries. As such, the sun race and the shrine both reject outsiders. Zhao Fu asked with concern, Do you have any information about that outsider? The white-haired old man smiled and said, Lord, you think too highly of me. So many years have passed, so how would I know? Zhao Fu nodded. The white-haired old man said, The god emissaries will come to our village tomorrow. What are your plans? Zhao Fu thought about it and said, I don't have any plans for now. I need to go to the shrine to understand the situation. The white-haired old man smiled and said, That's right. Lord, if you have any requests, just tell us and we will do our best to satisfy you. Zhao Fu smiled and nodded. The white-haired old man said respectfully, Then if there's nothing else, Lord, I'll go down first. Zhao Fu said, Wait. The white-haired old man asked curiously, Is there anything else, Lord? Zhao Fu waved his hand and countless things appeared on the ground. There were food, spirit fruits, weapons, and medicinal pills. These are my gifts to you. The white-haired old man looked at the many things and looked quite shocked. He immediately knelt on the ground and said, Thank you, Lord, for your gifts. In the future, I'm willing to do anything to repay you. Zhao Fu smiled and said, There's no need. The white-haired old man immediately called people to carry these things away. When he saw these things, he looked pleasantly surprised and his heartbeat sped up as he quickly carried these things away. An older child walked in and asked nervously, Lord, my father has suffered serious injuries. Can you save him? The white-haired old man looked at Zhao Fu and did not want to trouble Zhao Fu. After all, Zhao Fu treated them too well. Not only had he saved their village, but he had also given them so many things. Zhao Fu smiled and said, Sure. The older child said happily, Thank you, Lord. Zhao Fu followed the child outside and saw a middle-aged man lying unconscious on the ground. He had been pressed to the ground by the purple sun lion's claw and had most likely suffered serious internal injuries. Zhao Fu walked forwards and the others respectfully made way. They were also filled with gratitude and respect towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu squatted down in front of the middle-aged man and placed a hand on his body, sending a powerful wave of energy into the middle-aged man's body, causing his injuries to quickly recover. Soon, the middle-aged man's injuries were healed and he slowly opened his eyes and looked at Zhao Fu with a confused look. The older child next to him happily smiled and said, Father, It was this Lord who saved you. The middle-aged man said gratefully, "Thank you, Lord." Zhao Fu smiled and said, "You're welcome." At that moment, just as Zhao Fu was about to take his hand back, the middle-aged man's body suddenly gave off boundless golden light as a powerful aura spread out and a circular sun mark appeared on the middle-aged man's forehead. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them in shock. Zhao Fu looked quite confused. He did not know what had happened, so why did this middle-aged man have such an unexpected change? Chapter 2908, Book 1. Chapter 348. Bloodline Seal. The white-haired elder cried out in shock, "Bloodline Sun Seal manifesting, you really are the person prophesied by the 8 sun god emissaries." The white-haired elder once again knelt on the ground in excitement, and hearing his words, everyone else also knelt down in excitement. Zhao Fu looked quite confused, not understanding what was going on. How could he manifest the bloodline sun seal? The white-haired elder knelt on the ground and smiled as he said to Zhao Fu, "I knew my intuition was right. You're the true prophesied person. Only the prophesied person can manifest the Sun Clan's bloodline. Sir, we believe that you will definitely lead our Sun Clan to glory again." Everyone else also said, "Sir, we also believe you." Zhao Fu said, "You can all rise." Hearing this, everyone got up from the ground and looked quite excited as they happily looked at Zhao Fu. They all believed in the prophecy, and their days of bliss were about to come. Zhao Fu looked at the white-haired elder and asked, "Tell me about the bloodline sun seal manifesting." The white-haired elder replied, "Our Sun Clan first worshipped the 8 sun gods, and our bloodline was changed by the sun god power. As such, we formed the Sun Clan, and a seal was born within our bodies. That seal is the Sun Seal, and only those with great power can manifest the Sun Seal within their bodies. The other type is those who have Sun Source energy. The prophesied person has Sun Source energy, and even the current Sun God emissaries do not have Sun Source energy." Hearing this, Zhao Fu thought to himself, when he awakened the God Race's Emperor Star and the Spirit Race's Emperor Star, he had fused large amounts of Sun energy into them. Could this be the reason? However, this was the outer world and not the heaven-awakened world, and the laws of the two worlds were different. The outer world had 8 Sun energy, so the Sun Clan most likely needed 8 Sun energy to manifest the bloodline. However, Zhao Fu had not absorbed 8 Sun energy. 8 Sun energy was the outer world's innate source energy, and since Zhao Fu had absorbed it, it was impossible that he did not know about it. What was the problem? Zhao Fu looked at the white-haired elder and said, "Take a step forward." Hearing this, the white-haired old man walked over with a smile. Zhao Fu stretched out a hand and sent a wave of power into the white-haired elder's body. The white-haired elder's body gave off a golden light and a golden mark appeared on his forehead. Seeing this, Zhao Fu looked quite confused. The first time might have been an accident, but the second time was definitely not an accident. Was he really the prophecy child? Zhao Fu then had a few people stand in front of him and sent power into their bodies. Their bodies shone with golden light, and a sun mark appeared on their foreheads. At the same time, Zhao Fu also paid attention to the changes in his body. Although he did not know what had happened, there was definitely some kind of power that caused the Sun Clan's bloodline to manifest. Under Zhao Fu's careful senses, Zhao Fu finally discovered what kind of power it was. This made Zhao Fu feel quite surprised. This power was actually the 8 Forbidden Blood Art. The 8 Forbidden Blood Art was the #1 evil art in the Chaos world. It possessed a crazy, twisted, bloody, and perverted evil power. This power was completely unrelated to the power of the 8 suns, so how could it cause the Sun Clan's bloodline to manifest? Suddenly, Zhao Fu thought back to when he had obtained the 8 Forbidden Blood Art. It had caused the Chaos world to go through massive changes. The changes had been caused by the 8 suns in the sky. There were 8 suns in the sky, and the 8 Forbidden Blood Art also had the word 8. Could it be that the 8 forbidden blood art was related to the power of the 8 suns? He had heard that a long time ago, the extreme Yang region had gone through massive changes, and the deaths of the 8 sun god emissaries had been caused by an outsider. Could it be that the 8 forbidden blood art was related to the power of the 8 suns? After so much time had passed, Zhao Fu's information was limited, and he could only make guesses like this. He did not know what had happened. I really am the prophecy child, Zhao Fu said. If there's nothing else, you can all leave. The white-haired elder smiled as he said, Got it. He then yelled to the others, Hurry and leave, don't disturb the Lord. The others all left. After returning to his room, Zhao Fu started to think again. Zhao Fu had only come here to obtain the power of the 8 suns, and he had never thought that he really was the prophecy child. The next day, 3 people with shaved heads, naked upper bodies, and a white sun mark on their foreheads came to the village. They were the god messengers of the shrine. The leader said coldly, Hurry and hand over these resources. The white-haired elder chuckled and had people carry out a pile of meat, as well as some low-grade spirit fruits and spirit medicines. These were all gathered by the villagers and were not the ones that Zhao Fu had given them. The ones that Zhao Fu had given were much more precious, and the village could not bear to give them to them. The leader stretched out a finger, and there was a spatial ring on his finger that gave off a ray of light and put the items into the spatial ring. After putting the items away, the 3 of them prepared to leave. One of them looked towards a corner and saw a fruit core that gave off weak spirit energy. The person immediately said, Look over there. The leader looked towards that corner and said sternly, That's a high-grade spirit fruit core, and it doesn't belong to the extreme Yang region. You're actually hiding it? Hurry and hand it over, or else your entire village will suffer the pain of sunburn. In the past, the villagers would have been quite afraid because sunburn was a process of using sunlight to burn and crack their skin, and it was quite painful. However, things were different now. They were welcoming the legendary prophecy child. Seeing that no one spoke, the leader called out coldly, You're all seeking death. Boom! A massive aura spread out from the leader's body, and he slapped out with his hand, causing a wave of energy to rush towards the villagers. Sensing that wave of energy, the villagers' expressions fell and they felt terror in their hearts. A ray of black light suddenly shot out, destroying that wave of energy, and the villagers' bodies relaxed. They no longer felt fear, and they instead smiled. The 3 messengers looked seriously in a certain direction. A mysterious person wearing a black cloak walked out. It was Zhao Fu. The leader coldly harumphed, Not only did your village hide spirit fruits, but you're also hiding outsiders. You'll suffer the punishment of exterminating the village. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, Think about your own safety first. The leader called out, This is the extreme Yang region. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, I know. You can die now. Zhao Fu grabbed out with a hand, and a formless hand grabbed onto the leader's throat. With a twist, the man's neck was broken, and his corpse fell to the ground. The other 2 were greatly startled and hurriedly ran outside. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand, and 2 blood-red shadows shot out, shooting into the 2 villagers' bodies. The 2 villagers twisted in terror and grabbed their backs, because what had flown into their bodies were 2 long worms. The 2 worms drilled into their bodies and started to tear at them, causing them to fall to the ground in pain and howl. Chapter 2909. Book 1, Chapter 349. Death. Zhao Fu slowly walked in front of the 2 of them and smiled as he said, If you 2 are a bit more obedient, I can spare your lives. The 2 of them pleaded in pain, Sir, we're willing to be obedient, please don't kill us. Zhao Fu had the 2 bugs stop, and the 2 of them immediately stopped feeling pain and looked at Zhao Fu in fear. Zhao Fu looked at the white-haired elder and said, Take care of the corpses. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. I'll be heading to the temple now. The white-haired elder smiled as he said, Sir, we understand. Our entire village supports you and believes in you. You'll definitely make our Sun clan powerful, and we'll be willing to worship you for generations to come. Zhao Fu lightly nodded and looked at the two of them as he said, "Now, take me to the temple." The two of them nervously nodded in fear. The three of them walked towards a place, and as they walked, Zhao Fu asked, "What is the temple like?" One of the people nervously replied, "We belong to the Bright Sun Temple's White Grade Temple, which is located in the northwest. We have around 3,000 people." Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite confused and asked, "What's a Bright Sun Temple? And what's a White Grade Temple? Can you explain it to me first?" That person replied, "The shrines are divided into 8. They are the Vast Sun Shrine, the Heavenly Sun Shrine, the Divine Sun Shrine, the Holy Sun Shrine, the Bright Sun Shrine, the Light Sun Shrine, the Great Sun Shrine, and the Flaming Sun Shrine. Each shrine is divided into 5 levels. The lowest level is the White Shrine, followed by the Yellow Shrine, Red Shrine, Purple Shrine, and the Gold Shrine. A yellow grade temple can manage hundreds of white grade temples, and a red grade temple can manage hundreds of yellow grade temples. Our Bright Sun Temple has 6 golden grade temples, and one of them is where the highest grade Sun God Emissary resides. That temple is also called the Bright Sun Temple." Zhao Fu asked, "How do you God emissaries differentiate between levels?" That person replied, "According to the hierarchy of the shrine, we are white gods, and we have to have a white extreme yang seal imprinted on our foreheads, while yellow god envoys have to have a yellow extreme yang seal imprinted on their foreheads. The highest rank is the Sun God Envoy, and he is the person with the greatest authority and status in the shrine." Zhao Fu nodded in understanding. The three of them continued forward. That person asked carefully, "Sir, I heard them talking about the prophecy just now. Could it be that you are the one who prophesied in the legends?" Zhao Fu nodded. "I think so." The two of them knelt on the ground in excitement. "We are willing to serve you wholeheartedly and obey all your orders." Zhao Fu asked in surprise, "Is that prophecy really that important to you?" The man replied, If the temple knows that you're the one who prophesied, they'll definitely be very happy and warmly welcome you." Zhao Fu asked, "Then what does your highest Sun God Envoy think of the person who prophesied?" That person smiled as he replied, "I believe that the Sun God Envoy will welcome you very much." Zhao Fu lightly laughed. Things were not so simple. The Sun God Envoy was the person with the greatest authority, and if someone with greater authority than them appeared, they would find it very difficult to accept. Moreover, the first evil immortal might have been the person who had caused the mutation back then, and the consequences would be severe. If Zhao Fu revealed his identity, his life might be in danger. The two of them did not know what Zhao Fu was laughing about, and they carefully knelt on the ground. Zhao Fu asked, "How strong is your most powerful Sun God Envoy?" One of them thought for a moment before replying, "He's already at the half-step Almighty Realm, and he's just a bit away from breaking through." Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. After all, Zhao Fu had just returned from the lunar ground. The 12 Moons Immortals were half-step celestials, but the Sun God Envoy had not even reached the Almighty Realm. The 8 Sun God Shrine had truly declined. Even though the 12 moons had declined, they could still completely suppress the 8 Sun God Shrine. Zhao Fu continued to ask, "How strong are the people from the other God Shrines and Gold God Shrines?" The person replied, "Our Bright Sun God Shrine has 5 Gold God Envoys, and they're almost at the Almighty Realm. They're just slightly weaker than the Sun God Envoys. Some of the Sun God Envoys from the other God Shrines have reached the Almighty Realm, and some haven't. Their God Shrines have too many Gold God Envoys, so I'm not too sure." Zhao Fu smiled as he said, I understand. Since the two of you are willing to be loyal to me, I won't mistreat you." After saying this, Zhao Fu threw 2 bottles of medicinal pills to the two of them. The two of them received the medicinal pills in delight and knelt on the ground to thank Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu found out their names. One was called Eternal Time and the other was called Great Time. The one who had been answering Zhao Fu's questions was called Eternal Time. The group continued to walk forwards and came to an exquisite and tall god shrine. The surrounding villages were quite dilapidated and barren, and some people did not even have enough to eat. However, this god shrine looked so exquisite and noble, it seemed that it had been absorbing the blood of the villages. As the ruler of an empire, Zhao Fu felt quite angry. He definitely would not allow such a faction to exist in his territory. There were 2 armored guards standing at the entrance of the god shrine. Seeing the 2 god envoys bring a cloaked figure in front of them, the guards asked, "Who is he?" Eternal Time smiled and was about to speak. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand and signaled for him not to speak as he said, "I have an important matter to discuss with the palace lord. I'm not an outsider, I'm also from the Sun Clan." As he spoke, Zhao Fu stretched out a hand and a wave of energy spread out, causing many golden sun marks to appear on the back of his hand. Zhao Fu had fused with the Sun Clan's bloodline when he was alive, so he could easily manifest the Sun bloodline. The 2 guards immediately became respectful towards Zhao Fu. Anyone who could easily manifest the Sun bloodline was an expert. The guard said, "Please come in, I'll inform the palace lord." Zhao Fu nodded and followed them into the god shrine. "Let go of me." An exquisite-looking girl was being carried forward by a strong man. The girl struggled with all her might but to no avail. Zhao Fu looked at the girl in confusion. Eternal Time replied, "She's a maid. The god shrine will bring back some beautiful girls for the god envoys of the god shrine to play with." Zhao Fu frowned. This girl was evidently unwilling. The people from the god shrine would definitely snatch her back. The god shrine was truly a malignant tumor of the extreme Yang region. Zhao Fu said, "You 2 save the girl first. I'll go see the palace lord first." Eternal Time smiled and said, "Understood." Eternal Time and Great Time walked towards the man and asked him to release the girl. The man was somewhat unwilling, and Eternal Time took out some good things in exchange before the man reluctantly agreed. He even smiled and said that he could return the girl after Eternal Time and Great Time had enough of playing with the girl. Eternal Time responded with a few words and waited in place with the girl. Zhao Fu followed the guards into the god shrine with a trace of coldness in his eyes. Chapter 29:10. Book 1. Zhao Fu was stunned. Zhao Fu came to the main hall and saw a bald old man, who had drunk too much, sitting on a chair. He was wearing a white robe with a white pattern on it. The bald old man said lazily, "I heard that you were looking for me. What is it?" Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "It's a precious treasure. Please allow the others to leave." The bald old man felt a trace of interest and said, "All of you can leave." The guards obeyed and walked out of the hall and closed the doors. The bald old man looked at Zhao Fu and asked, "What treasure is it? Hurry and take it out." Zhao Fu slowly opened his cloak, and countless blood-red insects flowed out. There were centipedes, scorpions, ants, earthworms, beetles, and worms, and they quickly rushed towards the bald old man. The bald old man felt quite startled, and before he could react, his body was inundated by the countless insects. The insects madly drilled into the bald old man's body, and the bald old man struggled as he cried out in pain. Zhao Fu released a barrier, cutting off the cries. The countless insects entered the bald old man's body, and the bald old man's eyes were hollow as he lay there like a corpse. Now that the bald old man's body was under Zhao Fu's control, he looked exactly the same as before. Zhao Fu looked at him and said, "Give me the position of palace master." The bald old man said respectfully, "The position of palace master cannot be casually transferred. One must first become a god emissary and raise one's divine power by a level." Zhao Fu asked, "How do I become a god emissary?" The bald old man replied, "Receive a baptism of divine light." Zhao Fu asked in confusion, didn't the 8 sun gods disappear long ago? Who does this divine power belong to? The bald old man replied, divine power comes from the sun god palace and is ownerless divine power. Zhao Fu thought for a moment before asking, since it is ownerless divine power, then can the sun god emissary absorb ownerless divine power and become the new sun god? The bald old man replied, no sun god emissary can do that. The sun god's body is innately born, not acquired. To become a new sun god, one needs to obtain a lot of divinity from the sun god to become a new sun god. Zhao Fu asked with interest, where is the divinity of the sun god? The bald old man replied, I don't know. Zhao Fu felt a bit disappointed and said, then take me to receive the divine power baptism. The bald old man led them out of the room, and no one else noticed anything amiss. Zhao Fu left the temple and came to a large hall. Inside, there was a 10-meter-tall statue of a corpse. The statue was of a bald man with a muscular body. His eyes were spirited, and he gave off a dignified aura. This must be the innate sun god. The bald old man said, Sir, please stand in front of the temple. Zhao Fu came to the front of the temple and saw that the statue gave off boundless golden light, which shined on Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu closed his eyes and sensed a wave of ownerless divine power enter his body, causing his body to go through slight changes. At the same time, Zhao Fu sensed the 8 forbidden blood art in his body and found that there were indeed some changes. It seemed that the 8 forbidden blood art was really related to the 8 sun god art. However, as Zhao Fu looked closely, he found that even though the 8 forbidden blood art was related to the 8 days divine power, it had become a completely different kind of power. Even though the 8 days divine power could affect the 8 forbidden blood art, it could not fuse with it. Zhao Fu opened his eyes and said, too slow. Looking at the statue, Zhao Fu's eyes became serious and a formless aura spread out, creating a massive suction force that absorbed all of the golden light from the statue. This powerful wave of divine power entered Zhao Fu's body, but Zhao Fu felt that it was not enough, so he grabbed out with his hand. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out, and everyone in the God Palace heard this massive explosion and looked at the statue curiously. The statue gave off a large amount of golden light and a powerful aura that continuously flowed into Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu's body also gave off a powerful aura. By now, Zhao Fu still felt that it was not enough, so he walked over and his body turned into a ray of golden light as he fused with the statue. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out in all directions as a sun gave off intense light in the sky. A massive golden ray of light containing immense power descended from the sky and landed on the God Palace, causing a powerful wave of divine power to spread out. Sensing this wave of divine power, the countless God emissaries immediately knelt on the ground, looking incredibly nervous and feeling terror. The golden ray of light landed on the statue that Zhao Fu had fused with, and Zhao Fu wantonly devoured divine power. An even more powerful wave of sun god power flowed out from Zhao Fu's body, and a round white crystal that was as big as a lychee appeared on Zhao Fu's forehead. A terrifying wave of divine power spread out from Zhao Fu's body, and the stone shattered, revealing Zhao Fu's body. He gave off a faint golden light and floated in the air, looking like a true godly spirit. Everything returned to normal, and Zhao Fu looked quite surprised. He found that because of the 8 forbidden blood art, he was quite compatible with the 8 sun god power. It was as if he was born to be a vessel for the 8 sun god power, and now, Zhao Fu could be called a god corpse. The meaning was that the crystal on the forehead of a god corpse was an existence that surpassed even sun god emissaries, and it could contain massive amounts of divine power. Zhao Fu was now sure that he was the person in the prophecy, as everything was quite beneficial to him. If it was not for the fact that the bald elder was completely controlled by Zhao Fu, he would have looked incredibly shocked. After all, Zhao Fu had just been bathed in divine light and did not know how terrifying the divine light's power had become, and he now had the status of a sun god emissary. Zhao Fu looked at the bald elder and asked, "Can I become a palace lord now?" The bald elder nodded and said, "I'll give the order now." The 3,000 or so god emissaries gathered in front of the palace, and Zhao Fu and the bald elder stood on a stage in front of them. Jiu Ri and Great Ri both gave a trace of a smile as they stood by the side. They already knew what had happened, and they rejoiced that they had submitted to Zhao Fu earlier. In the future, they would follow Zhao Fu to become more powerful. Everyone else was confused. They didn't know what was going on. Who was that black-cloaked person? The bald elder said, "I'm going to make an announcement, which is that I'm going to give the position of Palace Lord to this sir. He is now the owner of this palace." An uproar sounded out as everyone looked quite confused. They could not understand why the palace lord would suddenly give the position to someone else. Had something happened between them? Zhao Fu said. Even though his voice was not loud, it could be heard throughout the entire palace. "As the palace lord, I'm going to abolish 2 systems. The god emissaries are not allowed to take resources from villages, and I'm going to abolish the servant system." Apex. Chapter 29:11. Book 1, Chapter 351. These words immediately caused a large number of people to be dissatisfied, because it affected their interests. "I object. Why should we abolish these 2 systems? I feel that these 2 systems are very good. There's no need to abolish them." "I also object. These 2 systems have existed for many years. We should respect the systems set by our ancestors and not make any changes." "Who are you? What right do you have to be the hall master?" "I object to you becoming the hall master." "That's right. I'm asking you, why did you abolish the 2 systems? We don't accept you as the hall master. We support the old hall master." "I also support the old hall master. I don't recognize your position as hall master." "Originally, I had no opinion on who would become the hall master. However, since you want to abolish these 2 systems, I will firmly oppose you. I also strongly oppose it. If you abolish these 2 systems, where will we go to get supplies and where will we go to play with women? If you don't solve these 2 problems, I will definitely oppose you. Everyone, support the old hall master. Don't let this person become the new hall master." The many maids at the side of the main hall were surprised. They didn't expect the new palace lord to make such a decision. However, they sincerely hoped that Zhao Fu could abolish these 2 systems, because they were all forcibly brought here to serve many divine emissaries, so they were naturally unwilling. "This hall master is a good person. I support him. Yes, he seems to have given us hope. I also support him to become the hall master. It's a pity that we don't have much power, so we can't help him at all. You see, so many gods' envoys are against it. I don't think it's possible. I also don't think it's possible. These 2 systems have been in place for so many years. How could they be abolished all of a sudden? We shouldn't have any hope. Sai, we should all be a bit more honest. If those oracles knew what we were thinking, they would definitely torture us even more. At that time, we might even be tortured to death by them. Such things are not uncommon. Even so, I still wholeheartedly support him. Whether he succeeds or fails in the end, he is a respectable person. I agree with this, and I sincerely support him." "I support you," a discordant voice rang out. It was the girl who had been saved by Zhao Fu. These words caused the god emissaries to become furious, and they all cursed out, "Who do you think you are? A lowly person like you dares to be so bold? You're dead meat in the future. You're just a maid, you don't have the right to speak here. Get out of my sight now." Facing so many curses, the young girl also revealed a fearful expression. She had shouted without thinking too much. At that moment, Zhao Fu gave a slight smile as he asked, I don't know how many people are against it, so please step forward. Hearing this, people stood up one after another. There were around 2,500 people. Originally, the temple had around 3,000 people, but there were so many people who objected. The people who stood out smiled and did not seem afraid at all. With so many people opposing, they did not believe that Zhao Fu would dare to abolish these two systems. If Zhao Fu really wanted to abolish these two systems, they did not mind rebelling and appointing a new hall master. The smile on Zhao Fu's face gradually turned into a sneer. He stretched out a hand and a powerful force surged out. Hiss, 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 countless insects and beasts surged out from Zhao Fu's arms. There were spiders, centipedes, aphids, beetles, and earthworms. They surged towards those people like a tidal wave. A look of fear appeared on everyone's faces. Some people wanted to resist, while others wanted to escape. However, facing Zhao Fu's absolute power, they could not resist at all. Pained cries sounded out as blood sprayed everywhere. Those people were savagely devoured by the insects and beasts. This terrifying scene caused everyone else to not dare to move at all. Their bodies were covered with cold sweat and they felt immense terror. Soon, the insects and beasts devoured all of the people who objected, leaving behind puddles of blood in front of the temple. Zhao Fu recalled the countless insects and they flooded into Zhao Fu's body. The flesh and blood devoured by the insects and beasts turned into waves of divine energy and gathered in the round crystal on Zhao Fu's forehead. A trace of golden light appeared in the crystal on Zhao Fu's forehead, giving off pure divine energy. Zhao Fu gave a trace of a satisfied smile. Devouring these god emissaries had been of great help to him. The surroundings were deathly silent and there was a dense stench of blood. Whether it was the surviving god emissaries or the female attendants standing by the side, none of them dared to move. They had never thought that Zhao Fu would be so bloodthirsty and cruel to kill all of those who objected. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "Who else dares to object?" The remaining god emissaries lowered their heads, not daring to make a sound. Eternal Sun and Great Sun smiled as they stood up and called out, "We support the Palace Lord and are happy that you can become the Palace Lord. We will listen to all of the Palace Lord's orders." The others looked at each other and someone immediately called out, "I also support the Palace Lord." The remaining people wanted to live, and there were also some people with a conscience who shouted in support of him. Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile. This was just the first step, and the path ahead would be much more difficult. He smiled as he said, "Since you're willing to support me, I won't mistreat you." Zhao Fu waved his hand and many resources appeared on the ground, all of which looked quite good. Seeing this scene, everyone else looked delighted and felt that they had followed the right person. Zhao Fu turned to look at the female attendants standing by the side and said, "All of you, come here." Hearing this, the female attendants nervously came in front of Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "Don't worry, I won't harm any of you. You can now leave the palace, and those who leave can take some resources and leave." The female attendants happily smiled and knelt on the ground as they said gratefully, "Thank you, Palace Lord." Some of the female attendants asked, "Palace Lord, we have nowhere to go. Can we still stay in the palace?" Zhao Fu nodded, "Of course. In the future, you will no longer be female attendants but part of the palace. No one will be able to bully you." Hearing this, the female attendants happily knelt on the ground and said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." The female attendants all smiled and looked incredibly happy, and some of them even started to cry. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "That's all for today. If there's anything else, you can directly report to me." After saying this, Zhao Fu prepared to leave. The young woman called out, "Palace Lord, I have nowhere to go. Can I follow you? I also want to grasp power and become an expert like you." Zhao Fu looked at her and said, "Of course." The young woman grinned as she ran over to Zhao Fu and introduced herself, "Palace Lord, I'm called Ri Qing." Zhao Fu nodded and walked over, and Ri Qing lightly smiled as she followed behind Zhao Fu. Chapter 29:12. Book 1, Chapter 352. After hearing that Zhao Fu had become the new temple master and that the two systems had been abolished, the white-haired elders' village all gave happy smiles. If it was as the prophecy had said, their days of happiness were about to come. The temple had many villages under its jurisdiction, and after hearing about this, they were all very happy. They supported Zhao Fu as the new temple master and even celebrated fervently. The entire village was in a festive mood. Zhao Fu returned to the main hall and sat down at the temple master's seat as he asked, "Rijiu, tell me about the temple." Rijiu smiled as he replied, "Yes. Firstly, the temple had an abundance of resources because it had plundered the various villages' resources all year round. Rijiu mentioned a few villages that were quite strong and had abundant resources. She asked if Zhao Fu wanted to summon them, but Zhao Fu was not interested at all. Some of the temples around the temple had good relations with each other, while others had bad relations. However, there were no conflicts between the two sides because there were higher-ups, which were the yellow-grade temples. After talking about various things, Rijiu asked, "Sir, the temple is lacking a lot of people. Do we need to recruit some people to be god emissaries?" Zhao Fu nodded. Rijiu then asked, "Sir, if we don't collect resources from other villages, what should we do in the future?" This was indeed a problem. They could not just abolish it. They needed a solution. Zhao Fu said, "In the future, the temple's resources will be obtained by the god emissaries, and some of the good resources within the faction should also belong to the temple. This way, they would not have to collect resources from villages and would be able to cultivate." Rijiu nodded and smiled as he said, "I understand, I'll do it immediately." After Rijiu left, Ri Qing looked at Zhao Fu curiously. Zhao Fu looked at her and smiled as he said, "Come here, I'll give you divine power. You need to cultivate well in the future." Ri Qing happily smiled as she said, "Thank you, Temple Master." Ri Qing walked in front of Zhao Fu, and the crystal between Zhao Fu's eyebrows shot out a golden light that entered Ri Qing's forehead. A powerful wave of divine power entered her body, causing her body to give off a golden light. Now that Zhao Fu was a god corpse and could become a vessel for divine power, he could give divine power like the god statues. Moreover, the divine power that Zhao Fu could give was even more powerful than the god statues. Zhao Fu withdrew his power and Ri Qing sensed the divine power within her body and happily smiled as she said, "Zhao Fu, thank you, Zhao Fu, I will repay you in the future." Zhao Fu replied nonchalantly, "No need." Zhao Fu said, "No need." After staying here for a day, Zhao Fu prepared to head to the yellow-grade god palace. A mere white-grade god palace was nothing to Zhao Fu. The yellow temple was much more luxurious than the white temple, and the god emissaries here had a yellow sun symbol on their foreheads. They were also bald, and they were much more powerful and numerous than the white temple. However, to Zhao Fu they were still too weak. After coming to the entrance of the temple, Zhao Fu was stopped by a few guards, and a well-built guard asked, "Who are you?" Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "I'm the temple master of the White Temple, and I have something to discuss with the Yellow Temple Master." The guard asked, "You need to prove your identity." Hearing this, Zhao Fu stretched out a hand and a wave of power gathered in his palm. A white sun symbol appeared, giving off an even more powerful and pure aura. Only white temple masters could have this kind of divine power. The guard said, "Come with me." Zhao Fu smiled and led the guard to the palace. There was a well-built bearded big man sitting there. He was also bald, and there was a yellow symbol on his forehead. He was not wearing any clothes, and there were two beautiful women by his side. The big man looked at Zhao Fu and asked in confusion, "Which temple master are you? How come I've never seen you before?" Zhao Fu thought about it and smiled as he said, "I'm the 137th temple master." The big man thought about it and looked quite confused. He remembered that the 137th Temple Master was an old man. A god emissary next to him suddenly thought of something and said, "I heard that a Temple Master was killed recently and his position was stolen. That person seemed to be very strict with the two systems and wanted to reform something. I think he was the 137th Temple Master." The big man said furiously, "There's such a thing?" The god emissary said, "I only heard about it. I need to investigate it." The big man looked at Zhao Fu and said, "You're the 137th Temple Master. Do you think this is true?" Zhao Fu laughed as he said, "It's true. Right now, the Temple Master is a malignant tumor. I want to change it for the greater future of the Sun Clan." The big man furiously called out, "Who gave you such courage?" Boom! A massive wave of power flowed out of the big man's body as he ferociously slammed his palm towards Zhao Fu, seeming to be able to shatter a large boulder. Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he said, "Who gave me such courage?" Zhao Fu stretched out his hand and easily grabbed the big man's hand, dispelling his ferocious attack. The big man looked quite startled and hurriedly tried to pull his hand back, but he found that he could not. This person in front of him was extraordinarily strong. The others hurriedly rushed up to help. Boom! Zhao Fu gave off a massive wave of power, sending the person flying back. The person crashed to the ground and coughed up a mouthful of blood. Seeing that he could not break free, the big man gathered a wave of power in his other hand and slammed towards Zhao Fu. At that moment, a large number of insects flowed out of Zhao Fu's body and gave off terrifying auras as they rushed towards the big man. The big man's hand was grabbed by Zhao Fu and he was unable to resist at all. A large number of insects drilled into the big man's body, causing him to howl in pain. Seeing this, the others revealed expressions of fear and ran out. Even more insects flowed out of Zhao Fu's body and rushed towards the escaping people. They immediately caught up to a few people and started to drill into their bodies, causing them to fall to the ground and howl in pain. Zhao Fu released a barrier to cut off the sound. A while later, the god emissaries rushed in front of the god palace, looking quite confused. They seemed to have heard a cry just then, so they hurried over. However, looking at the scene in front of them, it seemed that nothing had happened. The big man's expression was cold as he said, "What are you people doing here? Hurry up and go back." Hearing this, the god emissaries immediately retreated. Zhao Fu looked at the big man and said, "Give me the position of palace lord." The big man replied, "Yes, sir." The big man's body gave off an intense yellow light that condensed on his forehead, forming a yellow sun mark that flew into Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu was not interested in staying here for long, nor did he directly reform the God Palace. After all, the commotion would be too great. After he truly grasped power, he would reform the God Palace from top to bottom. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.